Hey, so I'm really in a certain niche right now, and I'm going to keep going straight down it, which is to say, the last two books that I have done for one of these live reads have been the Extreme Makeover Apocalypse Edition and Natural Beauty. And both of those are books about like sinister cosmetic slash beauty companies and culture, and I want to find another one of those. I think I have, mainly because a lot of people recommended that I read this book. This book being Rouge by Mona Awad. I haven't read anything by her, but I know her from Bunny. And Bunny is a book that I might read one day. I know what the plot of Bunny is. I've heard other people talk about it. From what I hear about it, I don't think that I would like it very much, but I also do know that it's very weird and a bit experimental, so I do generally like trying those kinds of books out. And I'm definitely interested in this one. Rouge, I read the blurb for when it was recommended to me a few weeks ago, and I kind of luckily, I guess, have really bad short-term memory. It's lucky in this case because I like to go in with not too many expectations of what's going to happen inside. So I have an approximate idea of what the plot is, which is this is a book, I believe, about a woman who her mother was very beauty obsessed, and that obsession with appearance and beauty and taking care of herself was passed on to the daughter. And when the mother is dead, the daughter is coming to like clean out her house or, sort out affairs, and winds up from this getting involved with a secretive health wellness thing that her mother was doing. That is what I believe the book is about. So I'm interested to see this. I'm kind of expecting this to be a book where the main character like transforms into her mother. Literally, I don't know exactly how that's going down, but somehow that is the main thing that I have as a guess of the plot, is that the main character will be like physically transforming into her mother, or her mother will, something like that. So I'm curious to see how this goes. I'm curious to see, I hope it gets really weird. I really do love body horror and horror in general, and like I want some weird and like emotional, physical reactions and stakes to this, especially after Natural Beauty, where I liked a lot of the things going on in concept and some of it, but I was really lacking that more like tangible connection to it. So I'm hoping we'll see some of that. I'm here with the trigger warnings for this book. So this book contains, of note, brainwashing, psychosis, child abandonment, grooming, and racism, particularly with the racism, a lot of colorism. I have now reached the end of part one of Rouge. Not much has happened yet, actually, but I think this is a good point to kind of check in because it has established a lot of stuff. It has set up some mystery. I do have thoughts about what might be going on, and I figured this was a good place to just kind of tell you some of that and have fun with a little bit of trying to guess because, I have really no idea what's going on here. Okay, so this book, it starts with a prologue in second person. That was already quite a bold choice. I am a big fan of second person. I think that it can be done badly, but also I'm not one of those people that just really hates it and rejects it. I see that sometimes where someone just says second person is just a crime, and anytime they see it, they just hate it immediately. I read Homestuck when I was a teen, so I do like second person. And the second person here is quite an interesting perspective too, because it is very clearly the main character talking to her younger self or somebody else talking to her younger self. It's not just a second person that is simply detached. There's a clear voice and commentary being made. Like, you knew that she was lying. And there were other stories, weren't there? She looked at you and you knew this, you remember this, it was like this. With a lot of very clear, hindsight maybe, but like I'm not even 100% sure that it is the main character talking to her younger self as she's recalling this story. And the story is that of her mother putting her to bed at night, which she does every night, and reading a fairy tale to her. And it's the fairy tale every single night. The main character would ask for the same story to be read. The mother would be kind of off-put and exhausted and tired by it. Like, she just didn't seem to have any enthusiasm, especially because it was always the same story. And then the story would be what seems to be a version of Snow White that is starting with or centering on the evil queen mother character. So it's the story of this extremely beautiful princess who is loved by all and the most beautiful in the land, who has a magic mirror, and the magic mirror can tell her that she is the most, beautiful and lovely person. Until one day, and the story kind of gets cut off there in the narration. But that is kind of setting up for where this story is doing a lot of Snow White stuff. I think that this is some sort of, I don't think it counts as a retelling, like, I'll see. I don't think it can count as a retelling, but it is using tons of thematic elements from it, which, makes a ton of sense, especially for the mother-daughter relationship, which is really center of this book. The main character, her name is Mirabelle, but she goes by Mira most of the time these days, but her mother always called her Belle. Her mother owned a dress shop, which was like Belle of the Ball. And her mother is a very complicated, strange, and mysterious woman that really, that's like the center of a lot of what has happened, is that she has recently died. She fell off some cliffs in the middle of the night and died, like, falling onto, like, the ocean beach area, which may or may not have actually been intentional is one of my guesses, but we'll get there. And she died. The main character has just kind of come down. She moved away to Montreal and is here to kind of sort out the affairs afterwards. And she was close to her mother, but she wasn't close to her mother. She has inherited a lot of these obsessions of beauty and perfection from her mother, though her mother did, it seems, way less skincare routines. The main character is obsessed with her skincare routines, especially her face, especially a lot of exfoliating. Why can't I say that word right now? She was, burning the skin off her face with a lot of stuff, okay? Which is not always burning, but she does a lot of that kind of thing, and I can say that word a lot of the time, but not right now, okay? She's obsessed with that kind of thing. The main character is in her mid-30s or so. She doesn't read like someone who is in her mid-30s overall, but at the same time, you do get a sense of why she is in a state that does feel a lot more like she's in her, like, early 20s, which is that her upbringing and situation of her mother, she always was trying to please her mother and say the right things. Her mother was this distant and just not a good mother, but in ways that are just very complicated and often ignoring the daughter, but also using her in certain ways to... It's a lot, actually, and I'm doing a bad job of explaining it just as a whole right now. And so the main character isn't grieving her, but also is grieving her a bit. It's a very complicated thing going on, which I really appreciated because I can't help but compare it to Natural Beauty in this way. Like, I would say right away these books are, again, very different. Most books are very different from each other. But having just read a book where I felt like the main character's internal thoughts and feelings were too distant, not really focusing on a lot of the beauty aspects, and gave me the sense of, like, is she really dissociated from all of this or in denial, but also not providing me with enough solid text? I really appreciated that in this book. There's a section that I'm going to attempt to read here that I think is conveying all of those things really well without being explicit about it. So she's at the funeral and her mother's business party is asking, "Are you all right, dear?" So, "Are you all right, dear?" she says, "Dear," again, and again my soul shudders. Her voice is as spiky sweet as the lilies and birds of paradise perfuming the living room. She looks at me like I'm crying. I'm not, of course. Just the bright sky hurting my eyes, probably. Or my diamond-infused revitalizing eye formula. It's a potent powerhouse that lifts, firms, and lightens, and is sometimes known to run into the eyes, appearing to make them tear. So I could look like I'm crying. I might even feel actual tears slipping down my cheeks, leaving rivulets of dryness in their salty wake. I could look so much like I'm crying to the average person unfamiliar with the formula that they might feel compelled to say to me, "Are you okay?" But I never explain about the formula to such people. I always just say, "I'm fine." "I'm fine," I tell Sylvia. So, that's just a passage that I think is conveying what her mindset is. And so far, though, a lot of the prose is, I'm getting used to it. Like, I'm at the end of part 1, that's about 8 chapters in. According to my book, that is not very far into the book, honestly. So I'm gonna see how I feel about it, but in general, in the beginning, I kind of thought a lot of it was more to capture her state of mind. There's a lot of these very choppy, short sentences. There's a lot of italicized thoughts and reactions to things. There's a number of things that get repeated, and that kind of fits the frame of mind that she's in at the beginning and still kind of is by the point that I'm at. But also, it can be kind of frustrating to read, and I don't get on with it because of I'm going to try and read some of the choppiness of the sentences where I want it to settle down a little bit, and it's evocative in some ways, but then if it is too much of that, then it just gets really repetitive. Okay, where's my example? I'm holding up my e-reader as I try to quickly find this example. Okay. Okay. And then I see there's someone else there too, standing away from the small murmuring clusters, staring out at the water. Staring out and smiling. Her hands gripping the rail of the veranda like she's on a cruise. A woman in a red dress. Red at a funeral? Am I seeing right? Yes. A dark red dress of flowing silk. Beautiful, I can't deny that. Mother would have approved. Something else sticks her out. But what is it? Something about her face so sharply cut, her skin smooth as glass. Have I seen her somewhere before? She looks happy. So happy I can almost hear the singing inside her. She has red hair, too, like Mother. Red hair, red dress, red lips. It makes her look like a fire. A fire right here on Mother's veranda. As I notice her, she turns to me and her face darkens, then brightens. I feel her look deep into the pit of me with her pale blue eyes. Inside me, something opens its jaws. She is staring at me so curiously, like I'm a ghost. Or a dream. I tried to put a lot of emphasis there on the periods there because it's all of these very little fragmented bits. Some of that has some italics, and then occasionally we get these sentences that are longer, but almost all of the longer sentences have too many commas in them, so the flow is really uneven when reading this. Like, the prose at times is doing stuff that I like and is matching a sort of mood, but at a lot of other times it just feels like jerky, like it's start and stop, like it's just that without having the variety in prose where you want to kind of do stylized things and calm down for bits so that when you have the more stylistic and, odder bits, they stand out more and they have more power to them, where this thing, all of the prose is exactly like that so far. So, right, what happens in the beginning? Mira, she goes down to take care of her mother's affairs and visit the funeral. At the funeral, there's her mother's business partner, Sylvia, who the Mira doesn't like at all. Sylvia seems to have gotten more control over her mother's dress shop. They're partners, and it seems that she's actually wound up gaining full control of the shop. Mira's mother had been acting quite odd recently. The most recent phone calls that Mira had with her were erratic, quickly spoken, very confusing and just nonsensical. She didn't seem to be certain of who Mira was at times, and she would misspeak quite a lot, say the wrong word, and then kind of be like, oh, no, I wouldn't say that, I mean this. Not completely out of place words, but more like a slightly different but similar word. Like, I'm trying to think of an example, and I wish I kept one down. At one point she says, like, sin instead of, like, thing, or something like that. Like, something that's very almost similar to something you could slip up in saying sound-wise, rather than something completely different, but all of the words are, like, a bit sinister. She also didn't seem to recognize Mira on the last time that Mira went down to visit, but Mira doesn't do that very often. Growing up, Mira lived with her mother, I think in Montreal, but she was then left with her grandmother for a number of years. She spent 5 years while her mother was down in California, like, establishing herself, and then when Mira was 15, she went and joined her mother down in California. She worked at her mother's dress shop, and went through kind of like a hard emo and goth phase. But, you know, it doesn't seem like they had ever really a close relationship, but also as a relationship where the main character, Mira, was always a bit fixated on her mother's beauty. Her mother was very good at, like, getting and maintaining the attention of people. She would be the right amount of kind of off-putting and direct and graceful, but also, she could be very harsh with people, but, like, always harsh in, like, that kind of, like, charming, elevated beauty kind of way. And she was always very beautiful. She had a lot of attention from lots of just random men who would constantly be visiting her, and she started her career as, like, an actress before getting into the dress business. Mira's mother also looked quite young. She died at age 61, but looked much younger, and seemingly maybe grew to be less old-looking in more recent years. Almost certainly that's the case. So, some odd things going on there. Mira has a meeting with her mother's lawyer where he reveals that her mother was super in debt. In the last year, she took out 3 gigantic loans. The loans were written to be for window repair, but that, you know, doesn't really make a lot of sense, and all of the money is gone. Beyond that, her house is in very bad condition. She has a car that is like a vintage Jaguar, but it's also in quite poor condition. The lawyer thinks that, like, if Mira could probably sell the house because it's at a good location and the car, maybe she could break even on the loans or, like, come close to it, but it's, like, a huge amount of money, and Mira's not doing that well in any way. Like, Mira lives in a small apartment with her cat, and she is obsessed with her skincare routine to ridiculous degree. She has so many products and things that she's always thinking about and has to perform on, like, set rigorous schedules. She goes to sleep every night holding a laptop where she's listening to her favorite beauty advisor person talking about, like, you know, how to treat your neck and how important it is to make sure that you're properly lotioning your neck, because really the neck is something we should be taking special care of, isn't it? And she goes to sleep and wakes up listening to these videos. So she's not really doing well. This is why, even though she is in her 30s, I do think that there is this clear, like, arrested development from her. Like, she just hasn't had much opportunity to break out from her mother's shadow, her complicated relationship there, all of these things going on with her. Like, she's barely getting by and living this life that is barely making it as a assistant at a dress shop, but in Montreal, which is another thing where, like, she can't quite escape her mother. She could be working for her mother. She chose to move to Montreal to help her grandmother is what it was, but after her grandmother died, she just stayed there. And so she got a job, probably earning less, at a dress shop in Montreal, even though she doesn't really need to. Her mother would hold that against her, but that's where she's wound up. So she also meets that woman in a red dress. I read the bit about that. That woman is very mysterious. She just kind of has a short conversation where she remarks that she went the way of roses. This is something that is a phrase that Mira's mother said on, like, her last phone call, was about like going the way of roses. And now this woman in red has said that something is going on there. There's a note that her mother used to be allergic to roses and hated roses, but also she got over her allergy of them at some point. This is then, right, so Mira is going through her mother's apartment. There are mirrors all over the place, but every single mirror has a large crack right down the middle. She runs into a handyman slash like gardener landscaper at this house and asks about it, and he's like, yeah, I don't know what's up with those mirrors. Your mother said that it was maybe something about atmospheric conditions in the house, just some sort of weird energy. Like once when your mother was away, I repaired a mirror and it cracked again just while I wasn't even around, so I don't know. She also finds in her mother's old possessions a bunch of dolls, a shoebox that Mira kept but has no memory of that is obsessing over Tom Cruise. And then she finds these pairs of red heels that kind of seem to appear out of nowhere. She thinks that she didn't see them at all, and then in a mirror reflection, she suddenly catches sight of them, and there they are. And she finds herself putting them on. She thinks to herself that her feet have always been huge, and this is another point between her and her mother, who had like perfect small feet, and she never could fit into them, but she finds that she can fit into these heels, and she just kind of winds up in a weird trance state. She wakes up and like is on the floor wearing the shoes, but also having changed into the silver dress, and then she kind of finds herself with the impulse to go for a walk, and she goes for a walk along the beach, past where her mother died, just kind of not really sure, just feeling the ocean air, but also having this feeling that her feet are guiding her somewhere. And they are. They take her to the other side of the cove, where there's all of these mansions that she has been in this area before, but she doesn't recognize one of them. It's new, and it's this beautiful glass mansion with like black concrete that is called the House of the Jellyfish, but in French. She's French, by the way. Her mother is French. And there's rose bushes along the walk. Jellyfish have been appearing in recent contexts around her. Her mother's house was full of these mysterious red, apple-shaped almost containers of like some sort of skin lotion, but they were completely cleaned out, like no residue seemed to be even left over in them. At one point, Mira got a random text message alert on her phone that seemed to be some sort of like a push notification for like an app or something that wasn't installed, which was called Rouge. And it was like, is grief afflicting your skin barrier? Go live now. And she clicked on that, and it was this video of the woman in red that she saw at the funeral talking seemingly directly to her about how, you know, there's ways to really unlock your true beauty and take care of your skin and self in like a better way. And that included a lot of like flash jumps of these red jellyfish. So she finds herself at the House of the Jellyfish. Going in, it's this like beautiful ballroom. Everyone's dressed in sort of vintage glamour kind of wear. There are these like champagne glasses with amazing champagne in them. And there is just a huge staircase in the very middle. She kind of realizes that this is a spa of some kind. She's not really sure what's going on, but she thinks, okay, this is a very fancy spa. There seems to be like a corner that has a bunch of products for sale maybe. And there she finds a woman who starts talking to her and seems to know her or seems to mistake her for her mother, like almost certainly. So she talks to this woman, and this woman says like, you know, she says, okay, so you've done it. And then the main character, done it? And then this woman laughs dry and like painful, and she goes, all right then, good for you. And goes, did you get a tan or something? The main character is, excuse me? Shouldn't do that on your journey, they said. Compromises the results. I'm sorry, have we even met before? Was it painful? Painful? Or was it beautiful? I've heard it's a little bit of both. And this is a conversation that is implying what I guess is going to be going on, which is that the J is capitalized journey. Her mother clearly was going here. A number of people express recognition of her, not just as her mother, but she meets the woman in the red dress after this, who also, again, seems very familiar with exactly who she is. She calls her the daughter with a capital D. So this journey thing, some sort of regaining of youth, rebirth, reincarnation, something like that is obviously going on. The line about her getting a tan, though, is something that is a theme that is quickly established, and we're going to see how this goes, but it's already very present, which is that the main character is mixed race. So another factor between her and her mother is that her mother is white. Her father died when she was 5 years old, so she never knew him, but he was Arabic. And so the main character, being mixed race, has like a different hair texture, different skin color, and though her mother would still like call her beautiful, she always felt that her mother absolutely didn't mean that. And all of these fixations around beauty are especially accentuated by the difference just between her and her mother in appearance, heavily connected with her mixed race identity. And I think that a lot of the skin treatments are heavily connected to that as well. Obviously, skincare itself is just linked to so much of it, but the way that she talks about it and the names of some of the products she uses really brings to mind ideas of like skin whitening as one of the things that she is trying to pursue. So her being pointed out as like, oh, did you get a tan or something, is a direct reference to her having a darker skin color than her mother, but otherwise looking quite a lot like her. So, let's see. She gets interrupted here by the woman in the red dress. We don't learn her name, and it's very, very, very weird what happens next. The woman in the red dress talks to her at the top of the staircase. The main character goes to walk up the stairs while doing so and just like keeps tripping over repeatedly in a way that again feels very surreal. This is all getting super surreal. And then when she makes it to the top, the woman in the red dress is flanked by these identical twins wearing black lace veils, who remind the main character of these two goth twins that she dated when she was a teenager. Like, they look a lot alike. A lot alike to the other twins. They also look identical to each other. And they're wearing these black lace veils. We never get their names. There's a man and a woman. They kind of start, like, with the red dress woman touching her face and making remarks. They say a bunch of cryptic stuff. They call her the daughter with the capital D. They want her to come back. She kind of says, like, oh, I have to go home soon. And this is clearly upsetting to them. At one point, the woman in red says, after all, self-care is really our only escape from the abyss, is it not? I know your mother would agree. And abyss is capital A. And then continuing, it goes, you knew my mother? Oh, intimately, she says. Very intimately. The twins smile now, too. Did they know her? Can I imagine my mother having a cigarette with these doll people who so resemble my teen lovers, clinking flutes with the woman in red? And you, we know so much about you, daughter of Noel, offers the male twin. Like, it's a very weird vibe going on. That she asks, like, she told you about me? I whisper. They look at each other. You could say that, couldn't you? The female twin asks the male. Oh, you absolutely could, he smiles. In a manner of speaking, yes. I don't know what the fuck's going on here, but I mean, it's something. This conversation ends, and there's this big tank in the corner where the curtains part, and there's a huge tank that's shaped like a flower, or more like a vase, if anything, where it's like thinner at the top, bigger at the bottom, all distorted in areas. And when you look in it, you see this beautiful version of yourself. Everyone clusters around and stares into it, like mesmerized by these beautiful images of themselves. Also in the tank are gigantic red jellyfish. So they're important. And she's just kind of staring at that for a bit when she realizes that through the tank she can see somebody that she saw earlier on, where she saw this guy working at his computer at the same hotel that she was staying in, and she recognizes him. And I would guess that he's some sort of journalist who is investigating this place. We still don't have any information about him. She follows him out. He's wearing some sort of disguise. He makes out with her to kind of obscure from some other like lace veil wearing people walking by because they're clearly heading somewhere that they're not allowed. But, you know, he kind of is like, go away and we can chat later, and she goes home. And that's where I am in the book. So, it's weird. The tone is weird. One thing that I'll say about the weirdness, though, is that I don't really like a book where there is so much of the main character going, I don't know why I'm doing this. I don't know why. I don't understand why I do this, but I don't realize or recognize that I'm doing it. Like, the main character starts to do that a lot when she enters the weird jellyfish zone. I understand that she doesn't understand why she's doing this, why she's here, how her shoes brought her here. The confusion definitely makes sense, but there is kind of like, I guess my ideal when there's this kind of thing going on is that the main character would be more in a daze where things kind of make sense to her in the moment, rather than in the moment she's kind of in a daze, but she keeps thinking to herself, this is really weird and I don't know what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. Because that kind of takes me out of it a bit and makes me go, the logic here isn't really present and this is super weird and surreal. And it's making me have to stop and be reminded of all of that rather than just trying to present it as this surreal experience that she is fully in the moment and present for. And afterwards she can go and reflect on it and be like, while I was there, I didn't fully realize what some of my actions were. But, you know, I'm still really early on, so we're going to see how I feel about a lot of things. So, what is going on here? I have some guesses, and okay, there's jellyfish, right? There's jellyfish, her mother is dead, but people are talking about this idea of a journey, and that's and also an obsession of, like, beauty. I think that clearly the mother was in this weird skincare cult thing. Magic is probably real in some way. I think that this is going to be a non-scientific approach. We're probably not going to get a lot of stuff hard explained, but the explanations we get, I think, are just going to be much more like it's based on soul and also special properties of the jellyfish, because clearly the jellyfish are the key to this. Jellyfish there's like one species or something that's meant to be maybe theoretically immortal, so I think that is the connection. This is some sort of pursuit of immortality or transformation into immortality, perhaps rebirth entirely, where the mother did die, but also she's not really dead. Something else is going on. I wouldn't be that surprised if there was some manner of like rebirth into a jellyfish and then the jellyfish turns into a person. Or more specifically, if I'm still kind of stuck on this idea the main character is going to literally turn into her mother and have to maybe, hopefully that won't be her end fate, but like that will be a threat of what's going on, that she will be going to get treatment here and these special jellyfish properties will be involved, and that will be part of a process to implant her mother into her younger body in some way. Especially with the way that the woman in red recognizes the main character, calls her the daughter, clearly knew her mother extremely well, and was at the funeral trying to, luring her here. Like, whatever's happening here, it feels very intentional. And I think that this journey process is about, like, rebirth, but also potentially about rebirth through the body or self of another. Also, there's been some talk about souls. Like, there's been a couple mention of souls here. I mean, we have something called the Abyss. I think that there's something about I don't know, soul transfer, soul something. It's come up. So I'm highlighting it to say souls, jellyfish, uh, the devil, I don't know. The devil could be here. I don't really know. And I assume the main character is going to start going to this thing. There's a journalist character who's investigating it, so he'll probably be telling us some stuff about it. And it's going to be really weird in a way that is not going to be focused on explaining or making that much sense. But again, there are ways to do that well, and there's ways to do that badly. So far, I think that it's at the right vibe and tone that I will be fine with it not making that much sense as long as it otherwise flows cohesively. But like, we will see. So this is a weird one. Okay, I have finished the second part of this book, and you know, I don't know what's going on. I'm gonna tell you stuff that's going on. There's been one very big thing that occurred, and I have not really figured out what to make of it yet. It's leading me in a direction that would be quite a surprising direction, I think. But yeah, okay, so Rouge. We were with our main character. She'd met some side characters. We had some situation. We have her relationship with her mother that continues to sort of be the driving force of this, is the mystery of what happened with the main character's mother, as well as kind of their relationship, which I think I said was very complicated, and I hope I didn't imply too much or at all that the complicatedness also included clear love and affection from the main character. Her relationship is very complicated. I think that she would probably really struggle on some internal subconscious level if she was asked if she loved her mother at all. But what's going on here is something else. Like, it's not a good relationship. But it's also kind of an obsessive and very envious relationship. Like, envy has been brought up a few times in the book, and that's what's going on, is this sense of envy and aspiration the main character has, while not really wanting to have it, but being stuck with it from her mother. And her mother, from what we see of her in memories and things, it's very difficult to tell some of her feelings towards her daughter. She's not a good mother and caretaking, but also there are a lot of times where she is assuring her daughter that her daughter, like, I'm calling her daughter, her name is Mira. She's assuring Mira about Mira's own beauty, and kind of the mother puts herself down a lot of the times in doing that. She's like, oh, you don't have to worry about these things. I have to worry about these things. And, you know, I have to do all these things to keep myself looking good, but you're just beautiful, kind of thing. And sometimes that reads like it's just kind of a polite thing to be saying. That's what you'd say to a child. But sometimes it does seem like maybe there's a sincerity there. The main character always interprets it as a side comment, which I understand why, but I get the feeling that there is more complexity going on with the mother's feelings towards her daughter than purely the envious and shitty mom situation. But I don't know. Like, that is a very interesting and complicated thing, and that is kind of the core of all of the weirdness around it. That's sort of the anchor point, I think, which is that as much as there's also some weird shit going on, including with the mother and the daughter, you know, that's the point that is most realistic and complicated compared to the jellyfish stuff. So, she visited this weird spa club place where the higher-ups seem to know her and keep calling her daughter with a capital D. There's been some eerie remarks about her mother. Things are odd, but also that's just kind of what we're going to be dealing with. Mira is continuing to try to, well, she's meant to be getting her house together to try and either like sell it or do something with the house. Along the way, there is this handyman named Tad. Tad seems like a friendly and genuine guy, but the main character, she cannot put past her depression and mental health and just all of the shit going on to really recognize that. At a few points, she goes and thinks like, he invites her out for like dinner because he's noticed that she doesn't really eat or take care of herself much. And she thinks to herself that she can see it play out if she accepted that invitation and it would be a good thing, but that she still ultimately rejects it. She's just kind of spending all day in bed watching her skincare videos. She hasn't actually done any packing. Tad has volunteered to help a lot. Like, he very clearly just can see that the main character is really not doing well, and like her mother just died, so that's normal enough beyond the fact that the main character is like seems in a really particularly off state. But as much as he's helping out and such, there's no way that they're going to get this house ready on Sunday. Part of this is that he's offered to say, oh, your mother had a lot of antiques, and I have a friend who's an antique dealer, so we could take some of these things and see if they're worth a good amount of money, because he's aware that she has this huge debt. So they go to the antique store, and while they're there, the owner remarks kind of like, oh, she's here, as the woman in red shows up. We still don't have a name. And the woman in red is just kind of prowling around the antique store, going real up close to various items and touching them, and then she starts sniffing them, just really intense, long smells. And at one point she like licks a vase. And then she notices the main character, and she just comes over and she completely ignores the two men at the antique store and just like has her hands on her face and is like talking to Mira in this way too personal and intense way, kind of comforting her about her mother's loss, but it's all super weird. And stroking her face, paying attention to the main character has a scar on her forehead that she doesn't remember getting and she can't seem to get rid of. And she just knows that it happened. She was told that she like fell down the stairs, but she has no memory of what it actually is. And it's this star-shaped kind of scar on her forehead. And there's a lot of attention being paid to that specifically by the woman in red, who then invites her to go to a private treatment at some point. Like, actually, not at some point. I think it's like that night or something. So she hands her a coupon and is like, here, have a free private treatment on us, And so that's something she sets out to do. I'm trying to think, the day before, this is out of order, but it doesn't matter that much. The day before, Mira went to the Rouge place again. This would be her second time going. It's like, I think the next night. And when she does, no one's there. She knocks on the door, and after a little bit, the door just opens, and she walks in. It's completely empty. But then a girl shows up, and it's the weirdest girl in interaction out there. I'll tell you. I'll read from the scene because I just have a lot of it highlighted here. Daughter of Noel, she says. For a moment, my breath catches. I'm struck. A beautiful young girl, maybe 13 or 14. Translucent skin, pale glowing eyes, a fountain of golden curls like a living doll, long black dress, a grown person's dress on her child's body, and yet there's something about the way she's looking at me, cold, knowing. She doesn't seem like a child at all, familiar looking too. I've seen her heart-shaped face before, felt those eyes on me. Was she Mother's friend? I'm Mother's friend, she says. Exactly. And daughter of Noel's friend too, I hope. She smiles at me with her red bow of a mouth. The childhood memory comes flashing back again. Me sitting on a princess bed, clutching a doll I hated, watching Mother brush her red hair in my three-sided mirror. She's telling me that fairy tale about the beautiful maiden. So beautiful, Mother said, that all admired her from near and far. I remember I thought, ridiculous, even as I ached to be so beautiful. I thought, what a lie, even as a picture began to form in my head of a young girl. This young girl, in fact, standing before me now. Same golden hair, same face of glass, same cold eyes, same dress falling from her lithe white body like liquid jet. On her shoulder, a pinned red rose. You, I whisper. She smiles like she knows my child's dream, though how could she possibly know it? Just a dream. No dream is just a dream, she says. My skin begins to crawl a little. When she smiles, I'm devastated by the awful symmetry of her face. Excuse me? Eyes Wide Shut, one of my favorites. So mysterious and full of fucking. Lots of skin. Have you seen it? I look at her heart-shaped face that is a child's and not a child's. The word fucking so comfortable in her little mouth. No, I lie. You like skin, don't you, daughter of Noel? Like your mother. You knew my mother? Why would this child know my mother? She looks up at my forehead scar, but unlike the woman in red, she keeps looking at it, smiling at it like it's telling her a joke. Oh yes, she says, and I know you too, daughter of Noel. Through my mother? Perfect, she says. Yes, exactly. Through your mother. So I could keep going on this. I'm going to read more. Okay. Believe it or not, by the end of the section, I'll have more of a thing I can say about what's going on here, but it's super weird and strange and truly dreamlike. There's this entity that is a girl and not a girl that is definitely reading her mind, which is what happened with the twins earlier, I'm pretty sure. Well, it's happened a couple of places. Definitely with the twins and like the woman in red on the staircase last time she was here. There was this reading of what she was thinking about and responding directly to it, which the main character doesn't seem to fully recognize as happening. But it also seems to be a formation of identity in a way. She's the one who begins to decide and think to herself that this girl is maybe this, and then the girl affirms, yes, I am a friend of your mother's. There's definitely a very clear thing going on. At the same time, the being, begins to say a lot more cryptic shit. As they have a conversation where she begins to like walk towards the main character while touching her face. The main character begins to find herself walking backwards, and they're doing a circle around the big jellyfish tank, almost like a dance backwards as they have a very weird conversation. Mira asks about what happened with her mother and with Rouge. She asks sort of what Rouge is at one point, and the girl answers, a way of being, a way of becoming one's most magnificent self. Your mother was among our prized members. And when she asks about her mother, and her mother recently died, actually, she doesn't even ask, does she? She just sort of starts saying, she just says, this has been a very trying time for you. I imagine it must be. Death, she says, is just another door. Daughter, we must remember your mother was making such progress. A shame to lose her, but she did go the way of roses. Surely that's a consolation. Main characters, I don't understand. Mother fell off a cliff. What does that have to do with roses? Was Mother okay? Was she losing her mind? My last conversations with her were strange. I felt like something was happening to her. What was happening to her was that she was becoming her most magnificent self. She sighs like, isn't that the loveliest thing? They have this very weird conversation. Clearly, as I thought, something happened with the mother that was... It makes it sound like maybe she was actually failing, but she went the way of roses. The girl is sort of saying that she had a lot of potential or was very prized. She was becoming her most magnificent self, which, by the way, capital letters on most magnificent self. But that, she now has gone the way of roses, which I guess the way of roses, this is something I thought might have been an answer, but I guess makes more sense here, might be the way of roses is to wilt. It might be that going the way of roses is a euphemism for dying, as opposed to a going the way of, I don't know, the jellyfish, like whatever their real goal of true immortality or beauty is. Then the girl continues to talk about how does one become their most magnificent self? And answers, she'd peeled away all the regrets, all the mind shadows from the past. Such persistent wounds, don't you agree? Yes. We're still gliding around the tank in this strange dance, me moving backwards, her moving forward. To become one's most magnificent self, to strip away the dark cobwebs in the mind, basement boxes full of moldy memories, chests under lock and key. Get rid of all that, right? Her hands are still on my face, grazing my forehead scar now. I feel a shiver in the pit of me, something opening in spite of myself. You'd like that, wouldn't you, daughter of Noel? She whispers, coming close. Yes, even as a voice says, no, you wouldn't, you shouldn't. Then Mirabelle brings up that she's going to be flying home pretty soon, which the girl seems a bit disappointed by. But as they go to leave, she's like, I want to show you something. And she takes her to this place in the corner where they sit down and there's like a water pool, and makes Mira reach in and then pull her hand out, and there is a white jellyfish in the palm of her hand. To which the child basically says, look at that. It found you. It found me. It loves you. It loves me? Can't you tell? You're gonna go on quite a journey together. We are? Oh yes, a marvelous journey. I can feel it. And then the last clarification we get in this conversation is like, what kind of journey it is, too. The girl says, the soul. A journey of the soul, of course. So, okay, that's all pretty weird. And this is when she then goes to the antique shop, runs into the woman in red, and the woman in red gives her that coupon to go to a free treatment, which she decides to go to. There's one more thing that happens beforehand. Again, the order of a couple of these doesn't matter much, but this is important information that technically happens here. At one point, while getting the one box she's had that she's been doing any packing or unpacking with, she found an old diary along with this box, the shoe box of all the Tom Cruise pictures. I know I mentioned that. And the old diary was locked, but she finds the key, at the antique shop. It was in one of the things she brought in. So she opens it and she finds that it is a completely blank diary, but it is dated. It's dated to when she is 10 years old and in the year of 1988, which we have found out is a year that she doesn't remember at all. She thinks of it as a year that is in a box. She just has these blurry impressions of random things that she's not sure are memories connected to the year. It's just all gone. And she flips through it and this is a totally empty diary besides the date. Except for 6 words written on a line around the middle that says, he came to see me again. And that is the only thing in this journal. Also, with her birth being age 10, 1988, this book takes place in 2016, so we do know that she is actually 38 years old. I thought that she was probably in her mid-30s, so that is actually clarified now. So that's a really mysterious message, but then she goes to get free treatment. On the way to getting her treatment, she can't seem to find the Rouge building. She's just looking around. It just doesn't seem to be there. She winds up in a different place looking for it when that guy that I thought might have been a reporter shows up. And they have kind of an exchange that is mysterious. I mean, it's all very mysterious. Though it seems like he's actually way more interested in what the treatments are from a genuine interest. And a genuine interest in skincare and stuff. He refers to himself as a fellow freak. And he reveals that his name is Tad. Not Tad, goddammit. It's Hud Hudson. Yes, it's Hud Hudson. He says that his mother was a romance book author, and so that's why he has such a name like that. But yeah, it seems like Hud Hudson is a bit of a fan of this. He's talking about what's going on and they're interested in you, Very. I'm jealous. I envy, to use the parlance. Who's interested? They, he whispers, the beautiful ones. I saw you talking to them on the staircase the other night. Never seen the higher-ups do that before. Take so much interest. So he then is able to very quickly be oh, do you need help finding the place? And then in a second is able to go, okay, there you go. So again, her being lost and not finding it feels like another weird metaphysical something going on rather than she literally got lost. The place moved, something happened, Hud Hudson is there. I don't trust this man. I don't trust anybody. I don't even trust Tad. Tad, the handyman, who seems kind of nice, but maybe there's something else going on there. The main character certainly doesn't trust him. So she goes to get free treatment and she's taken down a spiral staircase to this really dark hallway and goes into a very dark waiting room that is lit by red lights. On the wall, there's a bunch of these masks of like faces in distress. There's like avant-garde, it's very weird vibe going on here. There is another woman in this room that she tries to talk to be like, so what are the treatments like? And she only is getting more weird stuff. Like, the answer is, well, it's different for everybody. Well, it depends. And then also, like, that it's deeply personal. She doesn't really get anything clear. Eventually, though, she's taken in to go to this treatment, and it looks pretty normal. There's like a heated bed that she lies in. There's a person there who, you know, it's done like entirely in the dark, and it just is like they just put a bunch of stuff on her face. She has gotten facials done before. She says that it costs her a lot of money and she can't really afford it, but she goes like twice a year to a local spa to get like treatment done. And so she is going here and she's like, okay, this is familiar to me. Then at one point she notices that in the corner of the room is a tank with that small white jellyfish that she got the other day. It wasn't like given to her, like she didn't keep it, but there's a jellyfish in the core of the room. It's got to be that same jellyfish. It's just sitting there witnessing this. Then at the end of it, they turn on the lights. She has like a blindfold on because shock to the eyes and such, while the person doing it looks at her face to be like, is it going well? I don't know anything about this sort of thing. And says like, oh, you're really congested actually, and you know, you do need a lot of stuff. And then she says, memory and skin go hand in hand, you know. Good memories, good skin. Bad memories. And here she trails off because the mirror speaks for itself, doesn't it? And then Mirabelle just stares at herself, all of these feelings. I mean, again, I'm not talking a lot about how this book is doing beauty. I guess that'll be for the end when I talk about like the way that the main character's feelings about beauty and appearance are written. I think that it's doing well on that. Because the thing about the mirror speaks for itself, doesn't it? I stare into it. I stare and stare at my own wretched reflection. So close I was once, on certain days in certain lights. It's the closeness that kills me, the almost but not quite, the grasping and the disappointment, the resignation and the desperation, all etched in my face. The hope still in my eyes, dumb, persistent, unquashable. It gives me a slightly hazed, haunted look. Hope is a weed that Marva nurtures in the shade. And she just keeps, she never is satisfied with her appearance is kind of a whole thing. Closeness to what? She doesn't even know. Then she's left to do another form of treatment. The attendant asks, like, what if we do something about it? Like what? How attached are you to your memories? And that is what prompts her to Mirabelle to be like, no, not attached at all. So the next thing of the treatment is these two small black discs are taped to her forehead or stuck to her forehead, sort of like those things you do for brain monitoring. And then she is left alone in the room, which is completely dark. There's like aromas being wafted in, and she starts to feel very weird, like she's floating, like she's not really tangible in a way. And the ceiling above begins to roll back, revealing the jellyfish tank from the upper area. So she's surrounded and gazing up at this tank of these huge red jellyfish and just sort of feeling all sorts of weird. And then she starts to see images projected on there. But part of her mind is also reminding her that, you know, this isn't a movie that's being put on. She is witnessing her own memories. Specifically, their memories of that year when she was 10 that she doesn't remember. And she's just sort of floating in this weird thing as the memories begin to become clearer and clearer. And she recognizes that, like, this isn't a film about a young girl who's 10 years old. This is a film of yourself when you are 10 years old. And building back. The mind is, like, talking to her quite directly, where it's saying, sneaking into this room that isn't your own. And then main character's regular thoughts, not my own, not my own. Whose? Whose bedroom is it? Tell me. I look at the little girl there on the glass screen. The answer is a bubble leaving the mouth of the black box. The answer is a single word. Out with it. Mothers, I say with my dead lips. The words leave my mouth fogs the word leaving my mouth fogs the aquarium glass, fogs the film being projected by my eyes, but I still see that girl outside the room that isn't hers, the giant red jellyfish moving through her little body. I feel my mouth stretching open. I'm in Mother's bedroom. And that leads us to a chapter that is flashback and the last chapter of the section where, like I say, shit gets really... Okay, so, we learn that she is 10 years old, and it seems pretty normal for what her life has been. She lives with her grandmother and her mother in Montreal. Her mother is an aspiring actress. She has been successful at acting, but she really wants to break it in. She spends a lot of time going out for like lunches and dates with a variety of just random men. These are all men that are like producers or, you know, business guys or things like that. It's a string of like lovers, financiers, it's things like that. It's not really clear if there is any element of like escort or sex work that could also be going on, but I think that it is more that she's just whining, dining, charming, flirting with, you know, having more like lovers that then she's trying to use to get herself forward in the world where she wants to be. And she's going out with another one of these men and is telling Mira, hey, don't go in my bedroom, and you know you can't go in my closet, and really trying to reinforce that. Mira is just very upset. She's just being really upset. In general, she doesn't want to hang out with grandmother. Grandmother's always telling her like stories of the apocalypse that really scare her. She is just kind of frustrated and yells a bit, but her mother is just like, get going. And so her mother goes, and instead of usually hanging out with her grandmother like she often does, she is able to sneak away, and she goes straight to her mother's bedroom. And she opens the closet right away. She finds her favorite pair of shoes, which are these red shoes, which are the same shoes that are appearing in the present time that she kind of saw, like they magically appeared, that seemed to be guiding her to Rouge. She finds those same shoes. Those are her favorite shoes. So she puts those on. She puts on some of her mother's makeup. You know, she's just kind of like getting dressed. She thinks her mother is, you know, so pretty, and is starting to really think about, at age 10, prettiness and such around her. She has like no friends. She gets bullied a bit. Her one friend is like a secret friend who doesn't want to be her friend publicly. She's like a girl who's a bit older but was held back. And so the main character thinks that she's very cool, but this older friend, again, doesn't actually want to support her and be her friend in school. Like, they only just hang out privately outside of that because they live nearby each other. And she's starting to like develop thoughts around ideas of beauty and ideas of sex without really knowing what a lot of that is yet. It really is that kind of, you know, the start of maybe going to be a tween soon phase going on. And as she's going and getting dressed up, she notes that her mother has a vanity mirror, but it's not a full length. She used to have a full length mirror and it hung on the door, but her mother would stare at that all the time and seemed like sometimes completely mesmerized by it. And now it's gone. But then Mira notices that the mirror is actually in the back of her closet facing the wall. So she takes the mirror and turns it around, and it's all dusty and there's a big crack down the middle, like in the modern day, all of the mirrors. Then as she's like clearing the mirror and notices that kind of suddenly it seems like there is no crack in it, actually. It's a full mirror again. And she's staring at herself and her appearance. And one thing of note that we're going to say is that she has a bracelet on that is an Egyptian bracelet that has a Eye of Horus on it. So the main character is Egyptian. That has now been established. In that her father was Egyptian. Her father died when she was 5. She never really knew him and only has like that half vaguest memory of what he was maybe like, but nothing else. So the bracelet is a gift from her father with the Eye of Horus on it that her mother insists that she basically always wears. And she doesn't like it very much. Like, she never lets it, it says here that mother never lets her take it off. But as she's looking at herself in the mirror and staring at herself, she is like quite resentful of a lot of things. And again, a big part of it is resentful of her being mixed race. So I think that's a big influence on why she stares at herself and she thinks that she looks bulbous and her face is like a monster face and that she's just so ugly. She thinks of her wrists as being hairy. Like, she's 10. She has immense self-esteem issues already very strongly developing. So she takes that bracelet off. And I think this is going to be important. But what happened shortly after, as she gazes into the mirror and is thinking about, being beautiful and all that, there's a shape in the mirror. It is something like waving like smoke, but then it begins to be a man. An actual man is in the mirror. He's blurred around the edges. And then he has dark waving hair, eyes of bright blue-green. He looks like he's from the movie. He looks like a fairy tale prince. Are you a prince? I whisper. He smiles with his red lips. Am I a prince? He whispers back, looking at me from the other side of the rippling glass. Intensely, so intensely I shiver. His voice is playful, though. You know me, his voice says, don't you? I nod. Yes. His voice, his face, I know them. The movies, I whisper. You're from the movies. And just like that, he's not blurry anymore. He comes into vivid focus. His smile shows teeth. Long and white, slightly crooked. Yes, that's exactly right. And so he turns into Tom Cruise. He is exactly Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise in the flesh, standing right there on the other side of the mirror, looking just like the movies, except for his clothes, which are all black. But, he wears all black sometimes. And she asks, what are you doing here? What are you doing in Mother's mirror? And he just has a strange look. Tom keeps smiling with his long white teeth. One is longer than all the others, like a fang on one side. He says some things are secrets. His eyes say some things are secrets, right? Best kept that way. And then he answers, I'm here to see you, Belle. So she continues to kind of interact very, I wouldn't call it nonchalantly. She's like really overwhelmed that her crush Tom Cruise is in the mirror talking to her, that I think that there's already enough weirdness going on. I'm not really going to question, for what this book is and what this weird mirror entity is, I guess I'm going to buy that she's not really questioning that this is impossible. She's just asking, like, aren't you supposed to be in Hollywood? And he's like, I had to see you. You did? Definitely. And he asks, can I come in? So she says, yes, please. And then he walks through the mirror and joins her on the other side. And he's smiling at her and she's feeling very flush, and then thinks about how there are no eyes but Tom Cruise's eyes, which aren't blue-green anymore. They're red. Red and shining like the shoes on my feet, like the rose in his hand. What's wrong with your eyes? I want to ask Tom, but I don't want to be rude. And maybe very close up like this, Tom's eyes were always red and I didn't notice before. But wouldn't I have noticed before? He gives her a flower, and then she is thinking no one's ever given me anything like this. I can't wait to tell my friend. But Tom interrupts her and says, don't tell anybody. And he notes it's our secret from Mother too. He says, yes, even from Mother, you know about secrets. And they start to slow dance and are having very simple conversations that are, again, what's going on here? Tom Cruise says, I like your shoes. Wow, they're so pretty. So pretty like you. And he starts to, so Mirabelle's like, well, I'm not pretty. Mother's pretty. And he winds up going that, forget about Mother. Her beauty's a lie, a trick, not like yours. Mother is the moon to your sun. Mira's like, the moon is pretty. And Tom snaps The moon is nothing. Without the sun, what's the moon? Just a rock in outer dark. Its illumination, just a trick. Just a trick from the sun's light which it steals. And that's what beauty is too. Beauty is a mystery bell, a spell. Some have it for real like the sun. But beauty also disappears. And where does it go when it goes? It dies. So again, I'm giving you a bit of like, I'm scrolling through this conversation to read it. It's a very long chapter. There's a lot of uncertainty going down. One part is that he says, Tom Cruise says that when people get old, a lot of them lose their beauty. And when that happens, they try to steal it and take it back. And says that they do that with magic. Then shortly after saying that, he suddenly goes, I have to go. And Mirabelle's like, no, wait, take me with you, Tom Cruise, please. There's a flash of anger in his eyes. Then he sighs, strokes the side of my face with his cold, sticking hand. Not like Mother does, not like I'm some pet, like I'm his lover. I don't know what a lover is exactly, but I know that's what I am to Tom Cruise. My name's not Tom, he says. It's Seth. And she's like, what? Your name's Seth? But then she's like, I guess maybe that's a secret, like... It's a secret that his name's actually Seth, so okay. I mean, it's Tom Cruise, clearly. And then she repeats, yes, just take me with you, Seth, please, away from here. I'll take you, Belle. I will, definitely. And when, I whisper back, when will you? When the time is right, you'll know. I'll give you a sign. How's that? And then he disappears. She's asking, what's the sign? And he walks through the mirror. Then her mother comes home and is super angry that she was hanging out in her room, trying on her clothes, doing all these things. But there isn't anything that is saying, you know, that the mother is reacting to, oh God, you were using my demon mirror. Like, that isn't anything that we can tell. Okay. So that brings me to everything that happened in this section. So what the fuck is I think that Tom Cruise mirror entity, Seth, is probably the same entity as the girl, or they're the same type of entity, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's the same one, because in both of those instances, we have a weird being who knows the main character very well and is taking the form of something that is recognizable to her, that has come from her mind, specifically her past, or like her feelings. Like, the girl became this icon of a beautiful, perfect princess that Mirabelle imagined she could never be. And Tom Cruise is the guy that she just had a crush on when she was 10. But again, taking these deliberate forms to manipulate and reading her mind, responding to her, they're doing something. And if the girl is Tom Cruise, if the girl is Seth, then this is the reoccurrence that he promised. He's coming to take her. I don't know why she is being chosen like this. It very much could be that in a Snow White story way, because we're having Snow White, we have a mother, a daughter, a mirror, and the mirror has something in it that can talk. And this mirror entity might have found that she is the new fairest of them all kind of thing. She's the real new beautiful one. Her mother is no longer. But that he might have had a similar thing with her mother that is now leaving. But I don't know why specifically this has changed. If the mother maybe broke all of the mirrors or did something to keep all of her mirrors so that Seth would stay away, or if she was doing something to contain Seth. Because, you know, it's been like many years, it's been like 20 years more since Mirabelle was 10. And so when she was 10, Seth is like, I'm gonna come back for you. Now she's 38, and it seems like maybe Seth is coming for her. So, and right after her mother died. So maybe her mother was doing something to keep Seth with her, or keep Seth away from Mirabelle. I'm not really sure, but the timing seems very specific, and that seems like a long time for a weird mirror entity to be waiting around. Like, the mother's death must be part of what has brought him back to her, I would guess. Okay, The other thing, and this is the thing that I found very confounding, and I don't know, but I have to talk about it. Seth. When I saw that his name was Seth, I was like, okay, that's really weird, because Seth is a very casual, normal name. People are just casually named Seth. But the other thing I know about Seth is that Seth is another like translation or anglicization of the Egyptian god Set. So Set is a major god in Egyptian religion, and Seth is another way of saying that. And I don't understand why a mirror entity would just be named Seth in a very casual way, unless Seth used to be human and that was his human name. Otherwise, it's a very weird name for a mirror demon to just casually be and to reveal in like a secretive way, like my real name is Seth. So, Set. The other thing with Set is that, again, there was this emphasis to the moment before Seth appeared was that focus on the main character taking off her bracelet, which had the Eye of Horus on it. And again, she's Egyptian. This is an Egyptian bracelet, the Eye of Horus. I do not know basically anything about Egyptian, like Egyptian stuff. I've tried to read and read various things about it, so I know some scattered stuff, but Egypt has like just such a really long history with a lot of different like eras and big things. As I understand it, a lot of things around like how the religion was practiced and various beliefs and various gods and stuff really shift because, again, super ancient, culture, civilization. So when I've looked into Egyptian mythology, I have only got a very bare check on it. I did talk to somebody else on my Discord server. We're asking like, does anyone know? And got some more details about it. But Set is a god who is paired with Horus in a way. Like Horus is the god of fertile lands. Set is a god of deserts. Seth is associated with like deserts, famine, some like things of like destruction, but also that doesn't mean that he's really like a devil figure. I think that is what's really throwing me with the idea of like, is this Set like Set from Egyptian mythology? Is that, it's not the same sort of role of like, there's an evil mirror demon who's going to steal your beauty. I also don't believe Set has any connections to beauty and appearance specifically. Like his roles, to my understanding, like he did do some usurping at one point that didn't work. But again, like just because he's in conflict with a god which is more sun associated, Horus, and the Egyptians really put the sun is really their main focus of like gods. At one point there was a guy who fully tried to make it a only one god religion all around just like the sun, because the sun is way more associated with like the pharaohs. But just because Set is in opposition to some of those things, that doesn't mean that he is a god that you would just think of like the same way that we think of in like the Christian devil. Like he's just evil and a bad guy. That's not how religion works. Like all religions work. I'm going to say all religions because I guess the devil in Christian mythology is that, but you can't go and look at the way that Christian morality goes like perfectly good, perfectly bad, and ascribe that to how we view gods in other religions, So, and yeah, Set, the fact that it's Seth, the fact that there's this Horus bracelet, and again, Horus and Set are opposed forces in some ways to my understanding, makes me think, is that what we're doing? And to that, I have no goddamn idea. I don't really see how that makes sense. I think that unless they really come at me with this Egyptian stuff in a way that's like, yeah, no, we're doing like the actual Set, then I could be convinced on that if it was clear that was something that was like really well researched and put together. But it also might be that this is completely unrelated, in which case I guess there's just a mirror entity and his name is Seth, and that's just because that's his name. Welcome back. I'm here with another dispatch from the front lines of reading this book, Rouge. I have not finished it yet. I'm up to 83%, so I've read 2 more parts. The last part that I read part 3 wasn't very long, so I thought I'd continue through to part 4. And, okay. It's interesting. There's some big positives going on, I'll say that. I'm trying to save some of my broader commentary about themes and ideas until I've maybe fully tackled the book, but it's having some very, like, strong themes. There's been a very strong choice we're gonna get right into right away. At the same time, I don't really know where we're going. Where I've left off is a very odd point that I have no idea what the, like, wrapping, like, the 20% left in the book could be. Like, zero idea. I will say that for a book that is doing a bunch of, like, weird surrealist bullshit, I do think this book is not hard to follow in that sense. I know what's going on in terms of what is literally being presented to me and going on. It's not being vague in that kind of way, which I've read books before where it's very vague what the action even is. I know what the action is. I just don't understand why, but I do understand some elements of why. So I think it is effective at that part. And speaking of effective, the writing style, which I generally speaking have not liked, it really hasn't stopped from what it was in the beginning, all those really short, hard sentences, sometimes a bit of a run-on-one. The language is often a bit repetitive. Some of the repeating is for, like, thematic reasons where we're bringing up, like, glass and roses a lot, but also sometimes just things are described as being, like, glowing redly. Redly is just not an adjective I'm really used to seeing, so it really stood out a ton of just glowing redly. Definitely is used multiple times. Also, this is a book where it has some books, when they use fuck, it feels really childish. And this book is one of those. Every single time the dialogue has somebody going like fuck or fucking, I'm like, this just doesn't sound natural. I don't know what it is really, I can't define it, but sometimes you're reading a book and they can just throw in fuck and it's very casual and it's fine. And sometimes it feels like somebody who is like 16 writing and they're using the word fuck because it's like an adult thing and they can get away with it. And this book really somehow gives me that feeling, but just specifically for how it uses the word fuck. Anyway, part 3. So part 3, she is waking up after her long procedure thing, her weird relived memory, and things are incredibly off right away. This is like a bit around, I think, the 40% into the book, and I was very excited by, her brain is wrong, and we're in her first person perspective and really getting to lavish in something is really, really wrong, and she is not able to realize or recognize this. No matter what goes on, and it gets worse and worse, and other people are reacting to it and trying to talk to her, and she is just brain washed, messed with. Like, it's wrong. Let's see. I'll read a little bit of the text of her perspective from this part. Who are they? I know them, I know them, but it's taking my brain a second to give me their names. While I wait, I watch a pretty white cat do figure eights around their legs as they talk to each other in low voices. Now they both turn to look at me. The looks on their faces are very strange. I smile. Hello, good morning, I say, because my brain still hasn't given me their names. I was about to shower, but I heard your voices over the chimes and the waves. They both just keep staring at me like they've seen someone dead. Boo, I want to say. The pretty man with the squeegee looks stunned. Why stunned? Just a little bit of a glow. He grips the squeegee like a gun pointed right at me. I laugh to put him at ease. Don't shoot, I say, but he doesn't laugh with me. Maybe he's an idiot or something. So, this is Tad and her mother's lawyer. She never remembers her mother's lawyer's name. She gets to Tad eventually. She is just in a state of airiness. She can't remember things properly. She is just always thinking, I know I don't remember this, but everything feels so nice. Oh, how pretty. And she can't stop looking at herself in mirrors. and she remarks to herself how much she has just like a bit of a glow going on, and this will escalate more and more. Chaz is here because he wants to know about Mira's finances, and specifically saying, all of your mother's debts were cleared last night. And Mira is just like, doesn't really know. She keeps looking at her own reflection and keeps thinking that her reflection is she watches it nod while she's nodding, in a way that she begins to feel that it is a separate person but also herself at the same time. Like it might be acting ahead of her and telling her what to do. But again, her processing is just a bit off. And so the lawyer asks, like, so you cleared her debts then? And the answer that comes to me right away is yes, definitely. I cleared them. In the glass, I feel my reflection nodding. Definitely, we cleared them. I'm nodding with her, of course, nodding at both men because they're looking at me like they can't believe me, let alone my words. Definitely I cleared them. If not me, then who, right? And she just isn't remembering people. She is mixing up her present and past tense. She keeps kind of forgetting that her mother is dead, and then she kind of is remembering it in a very like, again, nothing is really sticking. And beyond that, Tad, who hasn't gotten to know her super well, but he is the one who spent the most time around her. They've had a few conversations. Like I say, he seemed genuinely just like nice and concerned about what's going on. He was her mother's house cleaner. He thinks that he was her mother's boyfriend, but that's never actually been confirmed. And some more of her changes here. The lawyer asks, so then your plan is to keep the apartment? Because she was originally going to. And it's when he says it that I know it. Suddenly, the floor beneath my feet solidifies. I feel something soft slinking around my ankles. The pretty white cat walking circles around my legs now. Beside me in the glass, I feel my reflection nodding and nodding. You are? Tad says. Of course you are, she mouths. Of course I am. I'll have to fix it up. Tad's going to help me with that, aren't you, Tad? Sell some of these things, get a nice, very nice price. I thought you said you didn't want to sell her things, Belle, Tad says. I thought you said you had an emotional attachment, remember? He's pointing to some sort of black chest on the floor. I look at it and feel nothing, just an old box of wood, taking up space. Not attached at all, I say, a smile in my voice. We can't form silly attachments like that. And my reflection shaking her head as if to say, nope, can't do that. Have to cut things off when they do us no good. Letting go is so worth it. He's just looking at me. Are you all right, Tad? You look like you've seen someone dead. And she just then starts to dismiss the two of them by saying, I wish I could talk more, but I'm late for work. I have to go. I'm late for work at my job. And they're like, wait, where do you work? And she's just like, I'm late for work. So she then begins walking to work and looking around town and really appreciating this area. As she goes, she notices that her reflection is more than just a little bit out of sync. Her reflection is moving ahead of her. She's not seeing it in windows nearby. She's seeing it in windows up ahead. It has become fully independent. And she's kind of like, that's a bit weird. But, she just kind of goes, so maybe it happens sometimes. Like sometimes there's a lapse or a jump ahead, a glitch in the glass. Maybe I just forgot how mirrors worked because of this morning's fog. She also has put on her mother's clothing and her mother's like dress and shoes and hat and glasses. She heads into her mother's old dress shop, which was called Belle of the Ball. It's still called that, but it was sold off to Sylvia, her business partner, and Sylvia has renovated the place and like only sells what the main character thinks of as like potato sack dresses, where her mother used to sell like very beautiful ball gowny kind of party dresses like that. And so she really hates these changes. She hates the new mannequins in the window. As she comes to the store, she just fully believes that she works at the store. She gets a call from her old boss in Montreal, and her boss is like, when are you getting back to work? And Mira goes, oh, I'm about to walk in right now, just not at all forming a lap. She's like, this woman who's calling me, Persephone, her name is, Queen of the Underworld. I wonder why she's calling me. Oh, she says I'm late for work. She must be my boss. Like, everything is just off in her brain. She goes in and she gets really upset seeing the mannequins in the windows particularly. Her mother had these mannequins that were way more like, they were full body with like lips and fake eyes, like, and red hair. And they quite resembled her mother. They used to really scare the shit out of Mirabelle when she was like younger. But this Mira is really sad that they're not there. She's really offended they're not there. And she thinks of them as her sisters. And as she is kind of going around the store floor, she talks to a customer, just like, first she's like spacing out for ages, and then the customer has actually been standing in front of her, like waving a hand in her face, and she just suddenly recognizes that. And so she gets lost getting the customer to a changing room. When she's trying to help the customer in the changing room, she says something very weird that she can't remember what it was that seems to really freak the woman out. Sylvia comes in and is like, hey, what are you doing here? And she, like, Mirabelle is just like not even, like, not conscious of what is wrong in the situation at all. Sylvia and people are bringing up, like, you know, you don't work here, and she just is not able to keep that information. And she's like, you know, Sylvia's like, I know you're working through a lot of stuff right now, you know, regarding your mother. And Mira is like, I'm definitely working through something, Sylvia, my shift. And then after, she goes to the back rooms of this dress store, and she finds the other, she finds the other old mannequins, her sisters, and she just starts taking them out and like changing their clothing with the intention of putting them up in the window. This is when Sylvia again is like, hey, if you don't go, then like, if you don't go now, I'm gonna call the police. And around this time, very lucky, that one guy, Hud Hudson, shows up and escorts her out. And Hud Hudson, I do not know what to do with this character. I really am not sure. Let me see. I'm trying to remember something because I'm like, wait a second, did I miss something in here? Am I going slightly in the wrong order again? I read this last night, it's still pretty fresh. Oh, no, okay, Hud Hudson doesn't show up yet. I'm so sorry. I guess she goes to the shift at work once, and then I guess she returns later. That's something that's going to happen, and this is one of those events where the order is not the most important, actually. There's just a little interlude here. She sees her reflection in front of the house. She looks in a mirror, but her reflection is clearly in front of the house of the jellyfish. So she decides she should head there, but the place is closed, and as she's walking by the water, she sees a red glow in the water and believes she can hear her mother's voice calling for her. So she goes into the ocean and nearly drowns because she'd forgotten that she doesn't know how to swim. And Hud Hudson rescues her here. Hud Hudson, I'm going to keep calling him just Hud Hudson. Hud Hudson takes her to like a hotel room and tries to talk to her about what's going on. He notes things that he seems to know more about what's going on, and she again is just not really retaining information. Like, he asks her, have you been feeling a bit scrambled lately? Are you forgetting names and places, mixing up past and present? And she doesn't really fully remember him, but he starts talking about what's been going on with this treatment and trying to figure out more about the treatment. He's covered like the one mirror in the room, and she finds that quite upsetting. She keeps being distracted and wanting to look at it and find her reflection. And let's see, him talking though, the thing about him is that he does seem to be like, he's a private detective, it turns out. What we learn a bit later is that he had a twin brother who started going to this spa and disappeared like 6 months ago. He himself has a very large scar on his face, which, similar to Mira having a scar, seems to greatly bother him. Again, he does describe himself as a fellow freak, where his interest in the place seems to be a mix of like envy or jealousy in addition to him wanting to investigate it. Like, he knows that nothing good goes on there, but he also seems to really crave what goes on there at the same time. Like, he's here to he wants to help her. He's trying to be like, what's going on with you is really concerning. This is very weird. They don't usually give out these free treatments to everybody. Only some people get the special free treatments that cause them to go really weird, like you're going, and then they disappear after the third one. And other people are just like members for life, and this never happens to them. Also, most people pay, and her mother was somebody who was paying, but was also selected to go and get some of the special treatment, but then again disappeared, or she died. But weird shit is going on. He's looking into it, and they have this conversation, but she just is not able to figure it out. And then when she convinces him to go out and get her like some tea, and she uses that opportunity to just leave immediately. She like takes the thing off the mirror, and in the mirror she sees her reflection in front of the house, and she's like, oh, okay, yeah, it's time for my second treatment. Though he was warning her, don't go to the second treatment. So she goes in. When she arrives, everybody is applauding her. Like, the place is filled with people, and everybody is acknowledging her, toasting to her, applauding. The weird twins are there, and they are called Lord and Lady Vici. I don't know. We still don't really have much about what's up with these weird twins. And then she goes in for treatment. She also, one thing with this is that she keeps mixing up certain words. It gets kind of silly because the word replacements, I mentioned this before, but I have like an example. This is one of the examples that is a bit like more on the nose and works, but not on the nose even in a bad way. But this is one where she starts thinking, like, she's recalling a conversation she had here. It's all in italics. And like, oh, she mentions to the Lord and Lady that she's having some issues of her mind being scrambled. And they're like, well, you know, some people need time to adjust. They get a little bit turned around, but I'd be happy to be a little scrambled for this brightness. And then makes Mira like look in a mirror. And she recalls, there is a whiteness, isn't there? I whispered. Brightness, I meant to say. Not a whiteness, I told myself. Call it a brightness. And that is one of the examples, though a lot of other ones are like, she starts using like ritual, she starts calling like ridicule, like basically swapping in a lot of words for more sinister sounding ones. Like I'll find an example later, I know, when she starts doing it a ton, but things like apocalypse and sin and like all of these scary evil words are just getting mixed in instead of correct words. But the brightness whiteness one is the one that really works because it shows something that is very clearly going on but becomes so much worse after the second treatment, which is her being white. Like, she, at the end of this thing, and clearly already by this first treatment, the way people are looking at her, she looks just like her mother, who was white. And definitely by the second one, she looks identical to her mother, but younger, and very much is white. So there is this glow, this brightness, this aspirational beauty that is very explicitly linked to people who are extremely white. White as snow, white as glass even, is very much being brought up, and that is what is very true. There's another woman in the treatment room that she runs into each time she's going for her appointment, and this woman at the first treatment is noted for being also mixed race, and very similarly, every time we see a mention of her, very like not acknowledged but true, she becomes whiter as well. So that is very much what's going on. Let's see. Yeah, she goes to her second treatment. So with her second treatment, this is where we get another memory, and the memory chapters are what actually dominates a lot more of the book here. Um, so I mixed up my order of events when I was like, oh, she starts doing the thing with the mannequins. That's after her second treatment. So really, that first thing is that she just wakes up, is confused. She thinks that she has to go to work, and she starts trying to help a customer, but freaks the customer out and then has to leave and drowns a bit and goes to her second treatment. And that's like a very brief bit of chapters overall, and then a much longer flashback. And that'll be in the next part as well, is really a lot for these flashback chapters. But they are really intriguing flashbacks. I think that this is she's 10 years old, and I think this is a good 10-year-old perspective overall. I guess I'm so used to reading books where they write children in a way that is just not right at all. Like, they write a child of like 10, but they write the child like they're 4. Like, they don't give children any amount of credit of intelligence or inner world or anything like that. Where I'm not 100% if this is a perfectly accurate 10-year-old mind. Like, I don't remember that. But I think it is very good for capturing a child's voice, and a child who is sort of confused about a lot of things in between in a lot of ways, doesn't really know a lot of things, but also knows some things very well. And so yeah, she is, after she first met Tom Cruise, aka Seth, but also I'm gonna mainly call him Tom Cruise, she actually started waiting for him to appear all the time whenever her mother was away, and he did. I thought that this might have been the case, that it was the one time. Tom Cruise visits a lot. So she hangs out with Tom Cruise, and she talks to him about everything, but he seems a bit bored. Her mother, when the first incident happened, did say this weird thing where she was like, mirrors aren't playthings. That mirror especially. So again, I think the mother knows something about Tom Cruise here. But yeah, she becomes obsessed with Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise visits her. She talks to him all the time. He doesn't seem to really enjoy that much listening to her regular life stuff, but also he is very indulging and charming and such. He also, he mainly wants to talk about two things, which is how beautiful Mira is and how evil her mother is. And he is not flinching in his language towards her. He really does call her like a fucking bitch. I will say that again, Tom Cruise using fuck is one of the instances where it makes him seem really childish and human, kind of. Like, it really makes me think like Tom Cruise, the mirror entity, shouldn't be using the word fuck in this kind of way. I think that it makes him less scary. But he starts talking to her a lot about how her mother is evil, how her mother is trying to steal her beauty, and he also is putting down a lot of stuff like, let's see, here's some things that he says. Your friend sounds like your run-of-the-mill slut, he whispers. School is a waste of time, Belle. You'll learn nothing there except lies. Death is inevitable, and the world is full of murder, Tom says, tenderly brushing a lock of hair from my eyes. So, he's a really good comfort, but also he is legitimately a good comfort, because her mother's not really ever there. Her grandmother is mostly just, like, watching TV reruns all day in front of, just sitting there in the den. She's like an old woman, and she also scares Mira because she likes to talk about the apocalypse a lot. So Tom Cruise is kind of like her closest friend and comfort, even though he's really weird. And so Tom Cruise starts to say, your mother is a real problem, and she's taking your beauty away, and I hate stealing, and I hate lying, and we need to do something about this. The lies have to be stopped, and she has to pay for stealing your beauty. And he begins to, lead her towards the idea that she needs to do something to her mother. And she doesn't really want to that much. she doesn't like her mother, but again, there is a very complicated relationship there where that is her mother. So she does have attachment to her, but also resentment. The word of this book is truly envy. Everyone is very clearly envious, and that's the core of the relationship. She resents her mother, but she is very envious of her mother in a lot of ways. And you get the feeling that her mother is envious of her. That this is kind of the cycle of beauty where the young girl wants to, be this beautiful woman, and the beautiful woman is seeing how she is aging and, is envious of the young woman who has more time in her life. And they're both kind of chasing these things, and it's impossible, So Tom Cruise does go to kiss her. Very concerning. Again, she's 10 and he's a mirror entity, so we don't really know about that. And she gets really shy and turns her head away right before he does. And he kisses her forehead, and that is what gave her the weird scar. It burns, and she feels like it is glowing. And that is her scar that she doesn't remember getting. And so pretty soon, though, Tom Cruise is quite like, we need to get rid of your mother. Her mother is like dating a movie producer guy right now and is talking about moving to California so that she can like star in a film. She doesn't really want to. And like, this is one of the things that with all the factors is, hey, this is what you need to do. And what she needs to do is she has to creep out to her neighbor's garden in the middle of the night and pluck 13 rose petals from the tallest rose. And tries to look through my text here. I apologize, but I'm doing it just one or two. I'm sorry I'm being very mixed up right now. I don't think anything's off. I feel like my brain's working totally fine, but I'm being a bit mixed up with things. I think it's because this book flows together where I'm remembering these flashbacks are very sequential. They really happen right after each other. There's a lot of other text in between them. Like, we are spending so much time on her interior world thinking about how much she loves Tom Cruise. And I like this. I like the outside bits where we're seeing her current state where her mind is fucked. But I'm finding they really flow together in a way that right now, as I'm recounting it to you, and I'm doing this a lot more than I want to, where I'm tapping through to keep track of things, I'm finding that I'm remembering things that are happening in the next flashback instead of this one, because he basically ends this one implying that we need to do something about your mother and isn't going to get into the whole plucking the rose petals until the next one. Sorry. But look, as we move forward, I'll stop mixing things up because there'll be less things in the future for me to mix up. No, this section only ends with him implying, like, you need to do something, and, you're like the prettiest girl ever, and, we need to do this. She's like, if it's the only way, and Tom says, it is. Trust me, okay? And kisses her, for real this time. Then after the kiss, he notices that she has the bracelet on her wrist, the one with the Eye of Horus. A funny look passes over his face as he looks into the eye, like he knows it, though how could he? And he goes, what's this? Nothing, just a gift. It's ugly, he hisses. I know, I whisper. Mother makes me wear it. Of course she would, Tom's face says. It doesn't belong on your pretty wrist. His voice is nearly a growl. So, she takes off the bracelet then. So again, this is that weird focus on this bracelet, and I do not know if there is any Egyptian entity stuff going on here. Anyway, we then go to after the second treatment. So this is the thing where her mind is somehow even more messed up than it was before. It is a subtle difference, but it's where she starts looking in the mirror, and instead of her reflection, she sees her reflection that is her mother. And she starts thinking and talking in a plural sense where she's referring to, like, her mother. She's like, oh, we were just, tidying up the shop and such. And she starts not really understanding that other people can't see her mother with her, and finds everything a bit like, oh, silly, and a bit just like, oh, this is just how things are. And similarly, this is when the mannequins come up that she calls her sisters. She kind of has really lost it. And let's see. I'm wondering if I can find a good example of some of the different text here. Oh yeah, I have some of the examples of these like word mixing up that gets really silly. So she starts saying, as I derange, I smile to myself. I keep thinking it's mother I see there in the insanity mirror. What a strange trick. Wait, not a trick. It is mother. She's back. Oh, joke. I mean joy. Joy. Are you back to do the morning ridicule of me, mother? And mother smiles with her very red lips. Definitely. And this is when she again fixates on the thing and is mixing up these things. She's talking to her mother and the beauty ritual. There is something really interesting here where her mother was just as obsessed with beauty products, but she hid it from her daughter in a lot of ways. Though her daughter also was very aware that that was happening, where Mirabelle would like do something beauty related. Her mother would kind of scorn her for it or tell her, oh, you don't need that. But then her mother would buy and start using the same product. And this happened like her entire life. Her mother did use skin cream and such, but then would say like, well, Mirabelle, you don't need to be doing this. This is just a thing that I do. And at the same time, Mira's like, I learned how to do morning ritual and skincare stuff. I learned it from watching you, mother. Like that really is it. But there is that interesting thing of like, mirroring, right? Like we're talking about a book that has so many mirrors in it, that she learned these behaviors and thoughts and styles from mirroring her mother's, even though her mother was obviously trying to take some steps to tell her daughter other things than what she believed, like telling her, you don't need these things, you're beautiful. But then by her mother using all of these things, even though her mother was so beautiful, it just reinforced the idea to Mirabelle that she definitely does need them, that she isn't beautiful without them. So, let's see. She, at this point, does go into work. Tad actually comes by again and is trying to check in with her and being like, are you sick? Are you okay? I know this is really hard, but you know, you're really, you know, this is very, like, maybe you need to move out of your mother's bedroom and this is affecting you. He notes that she looks exactly like her mother, and it's clearly really unsettling and like upsetting to him, which I really appreciate, having a character like this who is just kind of like, what the fuck is going on, girl? What is happening to you? But he still isn't enough to save her, you know? Like, that's the other thing about this, is that she feels very doomed. Like, I still have 20% of the book left, but it's very hard to imagine this is going to wind up all working out in any sort of clean way, you know? So she actually winds up, so she winds up like seducing Tad, which I just said good things about Tad, and now I'm like, Tad, how did you fall for that? And then when he like falls asleep or whatever right after, she runs away to head into work again. And this is where she is talking a lot about, you know, about how her mother is right here, to which Sylvia is again really telling her, like, you need to stop doing this. What are you doing here? You're not meant to be here. She heads down to the basement to find the scary mannequins and decides to start dressing them up. But as she is doing that to go dress them up and bring them out, Hudson shows up and is kind of like, hey, I'm here to sort these things out. And Mirabelle is like, okay, I'm not leaving without my sisters. And Hudson's like, okay, so bring them along. And so Hudson helps her bring the 3 mannequins to her house. And they then have a conversation where the whole time she is looking at the many mirrors in the house and is seeing her sisters as these identical, they look just like her mother, and her mother is is currently not there. And they are talking to her and doing a lot of like gesturing and moving. They seem to be representing more like aspects of what she is thinking. Like one of them is constantly just staring melancholy out to sea and thinking about like, we should just go in the ocean, we should just drown. And one of them is being very open-minded to HUD, like, oh, he seems like a nice guy, he really is. And then the other one is a very suspicious and off-put by him. And so HUD is trying to have this conversation of like, I should have been more upfront from the beginning about like my connection with this, but I'm very concerned about what's happening to you, because if you go to this third appointment, you're not going to come back, because that's been the case with everybody. And, you know, there's just a lot of like oddness of, it's so odd, but I really do enjoy this. Like, this is really a thing where the book is coming into itself very clearly. Like, I'm glad that it was at the 40% mark, which isn't super early, but it isn't that late in the book either for things to get super fucking weird. Like, I'm glad that we did have a bit of a slower burn introduction to then her being in this very dissociated, weird, fluffy state of mind, and all of the mirror entity things going on, and that this is lasting so long, even though, again, those flashbacks are a lot of it. So HUD Hudson's kind of like, you know, trying to talk her out of it, trying to sort things out, trying to, you know, offer things, and nothing is going on there. And at last, like, he basically just follows her to her third treatment. He can't get through to her, so he follows her. And she arrives. The ball, like, there's more of a ball atmosphere than ever. People, again, are going absolutely mad with applause when she walks in. She is just the center of attention. Everyone is talking to her. Everyone wants to talk to her. And, you know, talking about how she's at the, I'm gonna forget the word. She's at the precipice? She's at like the very, you know, the tippy point of a thing before you go down. Like, she's at the peak of what's going on, the part before the peak, whatever. Like, this is all where it's gonna come down to whatever the fuck this treatment is. She goes and she starts dancing with the weird child. The weird child shows up, as well as HUD. HUD wants to talk to her and tries to get her to dance with him for a bit so they can chat. And again, he's trying to like be like, hey, you know, this is really concerning, but she's not having any of it. The weird child girl comes back and, you know, interludes, and starts dancing with HUD. As the child is dancing with HUD, she starts whispering and talking to him in a way that seems to be entrancing him. She like touches his face, and he is just touching her face and staring in this very mesmerized way, where I think the child is offering him treatment. Because again, there's always been this element that he wants to help, but that he views himself as also needing this glow, this fix. He has this big scar that he wants it to be erased. And while the girl is distracting HUD, Tom Cruise shows up. And Tom Cruise is there and starts dancing with her. Tom Cruise is wearing a black suit and a black horned mask over half of his face. And, you know, they start dancing. It's romantic. I guess, you know, she's starting to remember clearer, like this was her first love. But, I mean, she's not in a state of mind to really understand things. And he takes her to the third treatment. At the third treatment, her jellyfish in the corner was once small and white, and now it is a lot bigger and redder. So it's starting to match the giant jellyfish in the big tank. The giant jellyfish, which, by the way, HUD Hudson has told her are not jellyfish. So I don't know what they are really, but they're not jellyfish. So he starts to guide her towards the that third treatment, and is talking to her very clearly of like, this is where it started, this is it, let's finish it together. And yeah, he leads her through to the third memory. So this is the third memory where she decides or is influenced to poison her mother with roses, which her mother is allergic to. So Tom Cruise tells her that, it's, nothing to be worried about, really. You're going to go and just steal it back, and you'll be so beautiful. Your mother sucks. She goes to collect 13 rose petals from, the tallest rose in the garden of her, nearby neighbor's house. And then she needs to go and get a mortar and pestle and start grinding them up. When she's at the rose garden in the middle of the night, a light comes on and she gets scared and she falls over and gets covered in scratches and stuff, which really freaks her out, but her mother doesn't notice this at any point, which again also makes her feel very resentful as well, even though she's very terrified when this comes up that her mother will notice all of these scratches and get super angry with her. But then her mother doesn't wind up noticing this, and that also makes her very angry, which is a very kind of relatable thing of you're not paying enough attention to me, but also I don't want you to pay attention to me because I've been doing things I'm not meant to. She grinds it up though, and she makes this red powder. And so she gets this red powder and she is told that she needs to mix it in with her mother's face cream, put it on her mother's hairbrush, put it in her mother's lingerie as well. And that'll be all. Tom Cruise tells her that it will just be a rash. She knows that that her mother's allergic and that it is not going to be pleasant for her mother, but it is being told to her that this will cause a rash and nothing more severe. But the next morning, she wakes up and there is a lot of loud noise and there are bright red lights and there is an ambulance outside because she's really allergic to roses. So she's had a severe allergic reaction. She's being rushed to the hospital. Mirabelle is really freaking out about this, that she might have killed her mother. She sees her mother's unconscious body at one point and is really, really afraid, and starts crying and all that. But she isn't allowed to go to the emergency room. Her mother's boyfriend that she doesn't like, the one who's a Hollywood producer, kind of seems to suspect that she did it. She does apologize and she does say I'm sorry. She does say, I didn't mean to. But yeah, she's not allowed to go to the hospital with her mother, which is really unfair. Also, there's a chance that her mother might have also become aware of this, but certainly that she would be aware because probably the boyfriend tells her. This is important because her mother never returns, but she doesn't die. What happens is that her mother goes to the hospital after being poisoned like this. Her mother is aware that Mirabelle is the cause of this, but they never have a conversation about it. Her mother instead moves to California with the boyfriend to go pursue acting. And Mirabelle is left to live with her grandmother and is basically told oh, your mother's just pursuing her dreams and, gonna set things up or whatever. It's never actually addressed between them what happened. And that really is something that fucks Mirabelle up severely, for many reasons. There's so much going on here. But her mother fully abandons her and, sends her postcards back. But they're postcards, the first postcard back that her mother sends is signed N for Noelle, her first name. She doesn't sign it mom, she doesn't sign it love, there's no XO. She just fully distances herself from her 10-year-old daughter who, did poison her a bit, but also she's 10. And she's 10, and this is something that should be discussed and why this happened and the mother survived. But yeah. Mirabelle in the aftermath tries to contact Tom Cruise, and Tom Cruise is not answering. And she's very, very upset and wants to talk to Tom Cruise Tom, you said it wouldn't kill her. You said we were just taking my beauty back, that it would only hurt a little bit. You know, Belle, what am I, a monster? Isn't that what you said? But I don't hear Tom's voice in my head anymore. He's gone like Mother is. And she just keeps trying. Then she goes to the mirror that she contacted Tom through, that Tom would always walk out of, and she starts trying to like knock on it, and then she starts like hitting it and pummeling it and crying, and the whole mirror shatters, and she gets hurt on the floor, covered in like broken glass. She has to go to the hospital and get recovery, and is just absolutely like, again, this is such a really traumatizing time. It's no surprise she locked this period of time away and couldn't access it. So after she goes to the hospital, that is when Tom Cruise is there. Like, Tom Cruise, Tom Cruise is not there. This is Tom Cruise in the present. I'm mixing them up. Tom Cruise in the present reflects on this incident. And he is reflecting on it and saying like, oh, you know, it's amazing you didn't go blind and you healed beautifully. And Mirabelle's like, what did you do to her? Like, you know, why did you do this? And Tom is going, didn't you envy? Didn't you want? A mirror is only a mirror, Belle. It only ever reflects what we desire and long for. And she goes, you made me, like you made me do it. And his smile fades then. Who crept into Mother's closet where she said not to go? Who turned the mirror around? I didn't make you do anything. I just saw what was inside you, seedling. Saw you tell it in the eyes of mud. You want to know what was in that red powder? Your dark feelings about Mother. Want, hate, envy. That's what poisoned the roses. Poisoned Mother, sad to say. That's what made the red dust. No, she says. He strokes my numb face, so tenderly like a child. I was only ever a mirror for your darkness. I only gave words and a shape to what you wanted to do all along. Gave permission. Showed you what you fucking wanted. So much. She goes, you tricked me. You saw what you wanted to see, Belle. You still do. Something shiny and torn from a magazine. Folded 3 times, then tucked in your little dress pocket like a secret, no matter how many times I told you my name. And, so this is an interesting factor in this. I think that there is something, like, potentially true here in terms of, like, you know, it's the mirror shows what you want to see. She wanted this comfort and things. Like, there's definitely a real entity. Let's not get that wrong. Tom Cruise is real, but there is a chance that he might not be directly malicious so much as he is a reflection of the malicious things that were brewing inside her. The severe envy and all the negative emotions that were brewing up inside her that, like, when you're reading the section of her preparing the poison, she's remembering stuff Tom Cruise said, but there's also the sense of, like, this is a girl who's out on a mission making a magic potion. It really feels like being a child making a magic potion where it's like, I need exactly 13 petals because it's magic. It has to be from the tallest rose in the garden. I'll know when I see it which one is the correct rose, which is going to be the tallest one. And, you know, it has to be the mortar and pestle and done in this certain way. And all of that does kind of feel like a child putting a lot of meaning into something and in the way of making a magic potion. And it, like he suggests, infusing that grinding process with all of her negative emotions has made it so poisonous. But also her mother was just allergic to roses. She was allergic. So at the same time, Tom Cruise saying, oh, all your envy was in this, might not be true at all. It might just be that her mother was really allergic to roses and had a very negative reaction. But either way is the question of, did Tom force her to do this? On the other hand, though, I think that Tom Cruise is evil because I think that he very much is clearly leading her along. Like, as much as there is a clear reflection of what she is thinking and feeling, he also is the one who is pushing her towards, like, you need to get revenge on your mother. Like, he isn't interested in her life. He's only really interested in telling her really negative, harsh things, and especially really hates her mom. in a way that feels extra and like he is changing the subject from what she is currently thinking and feeling about to be like, hey, your mom sucks and we need to get her. And similarly, he lies about the whole rash thing. It could be, again, that Mira was thinking to herself, Mom will only get a rash. And so Tom saying she'll get a rash is a manifestation of her thinking to herself that that would be what will happen and it won't be so severe. But on the other hand, I think Tom Cruise is a fucking liar, especially because he's here now, which I really don't know what to do with. Like, he's here now. This is kind of the big mystery of Rouge. Rouge is real. There are people in town who know about Rouge. There are other characters who know about Rouge. Like, it's a real place, not a manifestation of her, like, dreams and trauma. But there's weird shit going on there. The jellyfish is clearly, like, absorbing her trauma. And so all of those jellyfish in the tank, I guess, are people's trauma and memories being kept in a jellyfish form. But also Tom Cruise is there. And Tom Cruise seems to be maybe an important figure. Maybe Tom Cruise is the entity that this place secretly worships, and it's through his power they're able to do all this weird shit. I'm really not sure. But yeah. What else happens? I mean, there's a lot more, like, aftermath flashback in terms of just the action of what happens after her mom leaves. Like, she lost her bracelet at that point, and doesn't get it back, though mysteriously the bracelet reappears in her house in the present day. Her grandmother is the one who basically says, you know what we do with bad memories? We put them in a box, and we lock it away forever, and we never ever open it. And so that's where she got that bad coping mechanism. And yeah, she just, like, spends 4 years until she goes and sees her mother again. Over those 4 years, she has become very beautiful. I mean, again, she doesn't really recognize herself as such, but especially when she sees her mother for the first time in 4 years, her mother sounds, I mean, older than she's ever been described in the book. In fact, she has, like, yeah, there's a softness around the edges of her face, like she eroded. And her hair is dyed ice blonde. She looks beautiful still, but older, smaller. The blue of her eyes is less bright, more watery. Her mouth is still red, but small and puckered now, like the world has a sour taste. And as she sees her daughter again, there is this, like, slight fall of her face for a moment that is regarded by Tom Cruise, at least, as saying that was envy. She saw your beauty in her face, her beauty that you took back. And Tom says, you thought I didn't keep my promises, but I did, because you got to go to California in the end, like you thought you were going to go with me. I got you the beauty back from your mother. But again, like, Tom Cruise, you're such a... I don't trust you, Tom Cruise, because she grew up, she, like, aged a bit. So I don't think you did anything, Tom Cruise, except for cause her to poison her mother. I don't know what your game is, Tom Cruise. And he also claims that, like, yeah, I didn't reappear to you after that, but I was actually everywhere. I was always there. I was everything there. I got you all of your dreams. You know, you got to do everything there. And, you know, I don't know. So she kisses Tom Cruise in the present day as he's kind of told her that I have been with you all along. I really did everything that I said I would. And as they kiss and she's kind of come full circle on her forgotten memories, the third treatment is complete. The giant jellyfish in the corner has gotten even bigger and it, like, bursts out of the glass, and that's where the chapter ends. And that's where the part ends. So I haven't read any further. So, okay, this section. I got super mixed up in it, but I hope you can see why, because the first and second, well, the space between the treatments is different, but it's both quite weird and she does similar actions in both of them. I really like this present day thing. I really like a book that will commit to doing something with that voice, and especially in first person. The thing is that in first person, I want to feel like I'm experiencing how this character is viewing the world and thinking about the world. And this is a clear example of her brain has gotten jellyfish, and everything about her perception is this hazy, weird fog, and you're really thrust inside of it, and it's really, really good, honestly. I really like it. It's still written very similarly to the parts beforehand, but now those like stilted sentences or the weird run-ons feel more natural because her brain is in this weird state. I don't know what the hell's gonna happen. Like, I've already done a little bit of rambling about it. I don't know. The question that comes down to is like, I have 20% of the book left, which isn't a lot of the book, but it's enough of the book that I feel like something else has to happen, and I'm not sure what. In theory, she's now going to be taken fully into the depths of this spa cult thing. She might learn the truth about Tom Cruise in some way. What is he? Is he the Egyptian god Set? That doesn't really make any sense, but also, I don't know. She has her bracelet. I don't think she has it on right now, but that seems like it has to come back in a way that clearly connects to something. And her mother, like, this section has really expanded on the relationship between her and her mother, which, again, like I say, like the anchoring point to this, and very interesting. And this is a section where we start to see a lot more that there were positive feelings between them. It's not just as straightforward as like her mother was super abusive and evil. Like, you do get the sense that the mother cared in some ways, but, you know, still wasn't a very good mother and failed her daughter in many ways. But also some of the things going on are Mirabelle also reading into things that aren't there at points. And I feel like that has to come somehow more up, some more of a resolution. I assume that there is a connection between the mother and Tom Cruise. I have to imagine that there's a reason she had that mirror in her closet with a big crack through it, right? And she called that mirror, like, not a plaything, especially not that mirror. So she was probably communicating with Tom Cruise and maybe broke the mirror herself, but then it repairs itself when Mira comes forward. And all of the mirrors in the mother's house were also cracked like that, but they get repaired once Mira is in her weird state. So something about that. I'm really curious to find out what. The end of... Fuck, it's Rouge. Rogue. The end of Rogue is what I nearly said. The end of Rouge. The end of Rouge is here. It did not go how I thought it would go. But honestly, as weird little books go, it makes a lot of sense. There's things to discuss. There's so many things to discuss. But interesting stuff. So, right. Last time I had a lot of mixing up of various details. I just remembered something else that I mixed up. I was like, she seduced Tad. She seduced Hudson, actually. She just kissed Tad and then he awkwardly left to buy fruit. So I just was getting all these details mixed up. This time I have made sure I have better notes and clearer screenshots. In fact, I have screenshots so I can look at my computer this time instead, because that clearly works better and I should aim to do that. Sometimes I can recall things off the top of my head, and sometimes my brain, I guess, just gets a bit muddled, okay? It happens. So, Mira was there, her, like, jellyfish, after reliving a bunch of memories with Tom Cruise, Mirror Entity Tom Cruise, jellyfish tank, like, exploded. Her jellyfish, that is now all big and red, gets sucked up into the big tank above her, and she, like, blacks out. So, where she wakes up is even more out of it than before. Her thoughts at this point are truly empty. She really can't remember anything. She can't remember her name. She doesn't really know what's going on. She finds herself next to a woman, and they start talking and realizing that they don't know what's going on. They keep saying, like, oh, you know, them, we're going to, like, they're doing this, and they're like, who? It's like, oh, they're named after a color. What color? I can't remember the color. Funny that. It's so close in my head, you know? And they figure out that, like, so they're in something they're calling the after place, also known as the relaxation chamber. There are all of these people in like fluffy white gowns, like after a spa treatment, sitting in these white chairs. They're made to stand up and like get in line through this really long hallway. And she's discussing with this other woman. She asks, "And who are you?" She smiles and then stops. "I'm not sure," she says. "Funny." "Yes, that is really funny." She looks at me. "Who are you? Maybe if you know, then I'll know too." I try to think, but my mind is a blue pool empty of fish. Light from a sun streaming down, but no words there. No name that's mine. I'm not sure too. "Funny," we both say, and we smile. You have to smile or you'll something else. The thing that happens to your eyes when they begin to leak salt water. It's a little funny how we don't know. It's also not funny. It's the opposite of funny. What's the opposite of funny? Forgot. Whatever it is, I'm feeling it spread through me, and it's making me cold. It's spreading through her, too, I see. See it on her face. She looks the opposite of funny. So we're at this level of just, she's lost everything. And again, I'm really pleased about that. I really like that this book is committing to that. I'm in first person, I'm in her head. I want to see that like degradation of mind and self and all of the things being lost and taken from her. I still feel like that first section of the book is still written in this awkward and stilted way. I sort of wish that it had been more uniform and just very normal prose, so that when we got to her starting to lose everything, this slip into the shorter sentences and the kind of vagueness would feel even more cutting and deliberate. They just keep waiting in line until eventually they see the woman in the red dress and the two veiled people on either side, and they're both holding like bags out. She doesn't have any recollection of who these people are. Like, she doesn't recognize that, like, those are the twins that I saw. That's the woman in red. She's just like, there's a woman who is wearing red, and just no recognition. And they start trying to figure out who they are, but they still can't remember anything. The woman that she's with decides they're gonna just start calling each other these new names based on what they look like. So the new friend gets called Lake, and she gets called Moonbright. And so they just decide, we'll just call each other that until the mist lifts. They kind of have this idea of like, man, we're feeling weird, but surely we'll feel better soon. As they try to figure out what's going on. "This must be the way out, Moonbright," says Lake. "The exit. And look, they're giving us a gift bag full of samples for keeping up the bright and smooth at home. The lift. Oh, they are so kind." "They are so kind," I agree. "And our shoes and clothes to walk home in, too," she says. "Must be." "Yes," I say. "Oh, that makes so much sense. Because how could we walk home in these?" She touches her white robe. "It would be silly." "It would be very silly," I agree. Lake does the opposite of smile again. "Do you know where home is, though, Moonbright?" "Home. I try to think, but all I see is a blue pool of water." I'm afraid again. "I think so. It's on a street, I believe. That I know for sure," I tell her. "Yes, mine too," Lake says. "On a hill, I believe. In a house with 13 windows. Well, that should be easy to find. We'll just count windows." She smiles. "Yes, that's true. And roaring water. I lived beside roaring water. Like a lion, it roars all night. Well, we'll definitely find it then. Once we're outside, we'll know where to go. We need outside to orient us, that's all." Right, of course. Hard to orient when there's a fog still. And all these chimes. And the dark filling my eyes. I really enjoy their conversation, like, more than, like, her thought process being messed up. I really like how they're talking here. I really like the way that some of their sentences are stilted and unnatural in their words, as if they've just even forgotten proper sentence structure. They are talking to each other in this way where they're constantly looking to assure each other and find a logical answer, but they've also lost the ability to recognize what logic is. And as they're walking around and like waiting in this line, getting forward, They see that they're walking beside that giant jellyfish tank. As they go, one of the jellyfish starts following Mira and seems to be getting her attention or trying to communicate with her. Lake notices it too, and they just sort of are talking like, oh, look at that funny thing. And it bothers Mira a bit that this is happening, but she doesn't understand it. And it keeps following her very specifically along. Also, the jellyfish, they aren't really jellyfish. There was this thing where like Hudson was like, those aren't jellyfish. And they're not, but there's something, you know? They look a lot like jellyfish, but they have eyes. Like very early in the book, Mira does think to herself when she sees eyes on one of these, like, do jellyfish even have eyes? And the answer is that, like, there are jellyfish with eyes, but they're not, like, human eyes. But the way that these jellyfish are written, it sounds a lot like they have more human eyes that she's able to, like, more directly look into and see intent in a way that is not quite right. But don't worry about it. So they're going up, and when they reach the front, they are again thinking that they're going to get their stuff, but actually they're being given a new dress to wear and being told like, oh, this is for you to wear when you know, you're home. You don't need to worry about these things. I will say there's one bit in the narrative here where, again, I already complained about the word fuck being used in this way that just never fits in. This is a point where she at one point is thinking that she's going to leave and she might need to like pay because this is a spa, and she's like, oh, maybe we're lining up to leave, and then I realized I don't have my purse with the cards in it or my cell phone. Fuck shit. But maybe that's what they're giving us up front. And I'm like, the word fuck shit, it's just one word, should not be here. It feels, again, so jarring every time this book is trying to use strong language that it just shouldn't have. So yeah, the lady in red is like, you won't be needing your purse, you're just gonna have this dress, you know, all is well. They notice, though, that Mira is wearing her mother's red shoes, and she's also wearing her father's Eye of Horus bracelet. And the lady in red is like, what is this that you're wearing? Take them off, she growls. Shoes and bracelets. And they won't come off. She tries, Lake tries, the twins try, even the woman in red. They all try to pull the shoes and the bracelet off, and they won't move. This is like the one, like, as I'm gonna say, the one thing that really is not making sense, but like, it really isn't. This is something that is maybe the most, it's funny to say, the most magical thing here, where I can't actually draw a line to what's going on and answer why this is possible to happen, but it is, okay? These items in a symbolic way are protecting her, and so they won't leave her, but in a more literal way, I have no idea why they are unable to be removed. That just doesn't really make any sense. So the lady in red just kind of gives up and is like, the accessories won't leave, okay, and she gets moved forward. So they're brought forward to like this room where they get changed into dresses. They are these white dresses with red roses as like a layer on top, though Mirabelle is looking at them and feels like they look more like weird guts or the jellyfish than roses, but Lake is a lot more like content than she is and starts to feel a lot happier when being told like, this is your home, so don't worry, you don't have to go. Where Mirabelle is, she still is very deep in it, which I appreciate. This is not a matter of like she quickly is able to break out of being brainwashed. She is deep in it. But there's just a lot of things that are not quite right for her that are just lingering and making her feel uncomfortable and a little bit off. So they're told that they are going to go to a feast, which is very exciting, of course. And they are made to line up. They are each given a silver tray, like a serving platter, that has a black cloth in the center of it and nothing else. And then they are taken up this very long, winding way until they reach like the very top of the building, which is a huge dining room under this dome of glass. And at the very there's a big table, a big head table, and then a little ways across from the head table is the top of the jellyfish tank, which we understand at this point is gigantic and runs through the whole building. So the treatment room in the basement is like the base of it. There is this part that's in the ballroom, which is that like kind of, it's a vase if you really think about it. It's shaped like a vase with the flower-shaped like lip of the vase coming up to this dining room. And at this table, there are a lot of people all wearing all black. They have black veils over their faces and black suits and dresses. And there are a number of the people in like silver, like the twins, who seem to be more attendants. They're kind of standing to the side. And then the lady in red is like a hostess of some kind. So the main character and Lake are taken up and don't really know. They start saying some very interesting things. So I'm going to read some of the things that are said. A lot of what's going on is actually explained more than you would think, but it's not necessarily like fully and clearly. So Mira asks Lake, "Who are they, Lake? Do you know them?" "They?" Lake whispers. "The ones who architect our dreams, of course." "Who give them shapes and names," says a woman beside Lake. "Their silky textures and wondrous colors and timeless scents. Bottle them in the prettiest of red jars. Make creams and sprays of them," Lake adds, "which they then sell and which we are so lucky to buy." "There is no price too high," agrees the dewy woman. So, they start talking about that. And all of the other people gathered here they start being like mesmerized by the trays. So as they're like coming up to stand in this circle on the opposite of the dining table, they're not sat down, they're kind of just standing in display in a line. One of the attendant in silver like removes the black cloth from each of them, which shows the mirrored aspect of the silver dining tray. So everybody begins to stare straight down at their tray, which is a mirror. It's the first mirror that they've seen in this whole area after they've entered the after place. And this mirror instantly is mesmerizing to everybody. They start kind of like shaking, staring super intensely, smiling, very much smiling, and kind of numb to everything going on. Where the main character is not having that. Like, she's able to look around. She still hasn't quite caught on to what is so weird about any of this, though. She's able to look around, and she still talks to Lake or other people, but they don't respond because they're being mesmerized by the mirror. And she doesn't really mark that in any way. Like, she's still totally out of it, but she has a little bit more immunity to whatever's going on. The lady in red is then goes to stand by a chair at like the head of the table, which is more of a throne, and welcomes a very special guest. So there's a lot of special capital words going on here. I'll try to really emphasize them, but there's a lot. "We have a very special guest to welcome for tonight's feast," she says, "one of our very best, who has given us so much, contributed so deeply to the source, the wellspring of our mission, one who has, over the ages, planted many a seed in many a vessel and watched the roses grow." And she gestures to us moon-bright ones along the wall. "We are the roses, apparently. Or are we the vessels? In fact, this guest planted one of the roses here with us tonight in this very room right now, which is why we invited him to join us tonight." So the special guest is, of course, Tom Cruise. And it's Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise does seem to be paying more attention to the main character. The way that this is described, it's that he is one of the people in black veils, but he is clearly more of a special one, maybe more of like there's a real vampiric energy going on that's going to get more so with this like gothic thing, this sort of council, the way that they are kind of choosing specific people. It kind of gives the vibe of like he's like an elder vampire. They're not actually vampires, but it's not entirely clear. But yeah, he planted a rose in a vessel, which is clearly the main character. And I'm not entirely sure what that means. We'll get there. So he goes over, he sits down, he's welcomed. Everyone is like super excited to see him there. And then they get ready to start the feast. and they choose a person. And he chooses Lake. He sees that the main character is like concerned about Lake at this point, and he specifically chooses Lake because of that. And he's like, "You're selected." And Lake instantly snaps out of what was wrong with her and is like, "I'm selected? Oh my god," and is like super excited. And the main character is struck with this sharp feeling of envy and almost hatred at seeing that she is the special selected one. When she's selected, the lady in red does throw in, "Oh, a young one, only just opened, just joined us. Perfect, I can assure you, full of our favorite delicacies, but perhaps still requiring some marination. Are you sure you wouldn't prefer?" And, you know, Tom Cruise is like, "No, her." So at this point, Lake is given a very large net and is made to go over to the base of the jellyfish pool and drop some rose petals in the water. A jellyfish comes to the surface and she captures it in the net and then puts that onto the tray. Then she is carrying the tray and bringing it up to the head table. The jellyfish, it goes like straight for her, and it's like it wants to be caught and it wants to be near her, is very much clear. It is like thumping on the table like a wildly beating heart, it says. And Lake is just so happy to serve it to these people. And as she puts it down, the lady in red gets out like a carving fork and knife, but she never gets to carve it. And I'll read some description of what happens. "Never gets to carve the jumping, wriggling thing, because one of the veiled ones reaches a hand out and there is a ripping sound and then a scream, and all of the black silk arms are reaching, descending upon Lake's creature, still wriggling as it is ripped apart by their tearing hands. I see it torn and thrashing between their bodies. I see mouths full of red between the black veils, chewing and slurping up the many red tentacles of Lake's jelly, dangling from their mouths like a bloody, alive spaghetti. Every mouth at the table and every gloved hand covered in blood and fish bits. And the lady in red is smiling, even as her white as snow face gets splattered with the reddest blood of Lake's jelly that they eat so violently. But the lady in red doesn't seem to mind. She licks whatever blood splatter comes to her face with the tip of her long, pink, hunting tongue. Whatever bit she licks makes her shudder with pleasure. Her eyes roll back into her head with the pleasure. Meanwhile, someone is screaming and screaming. The wildest, loudest screams I have ever heard. Like they are being physically torn apart, ripped wide open, and they are alive and seeing it at the same time. The screams deafen my ears. Where are they coming from? Every mouth is too full of jelly to scream. Lake. Lake, at the end of the table, standing between the two smiling people in silver. Lake barely standing. The people in silver are holding her up by the arms. Lake screaming as her jelly is eaten before her eyes. Screaming as if she is the one being eaten, even though she is not. It is only her jelly. But Lake's eyes are wide open, and her screams bloom from the wide open throat of her soul. The bloody thing on her dress looks like a stomach slashed open now, more than ever before. The people in silver keep holding her in place, each of a gloved hand. And the veiled ones keep eating and eating, making gasping and shuddering sounds of such pleasure. And will no one stop this? But the moon-bright ones along the wall are still looking into their mirror trays and smiling. Beautiful, brightened, poreless, they chant over and over at their own reflected faces. So, yeah, pretty wild scene. The main character decides that she wants to try and intervene, but finds that, like, some rose thorn branches have emerged from a wall that she's in front of and are, like, holding her in place. I don't really know. And so she can't. I don't actually know why that had to happen at all. I feel like she should have just found herself unable to move because of the weird mind power thing that's kind of going on here. So, they eat that up, and then after they eat it in this really long, violent, scene, they all kind of go like, that was all right. That was okay. But we're like super still hungry. So even though it was like, they had pure ecstasy tasting it, it apparently wasn't even that good. So then they're like, okay, we want more. And the lady in red is like, great, good news. That was just sort of a hors d'oeuvre. And actually, there's going to be like a very special main meal. And she kind of gestures to Tom Cruise and he is responsible for tonight's main menu. And then she recounts the story. So she says, "Allow me to recount the story. We had a most surprising catch of late. One of our most intriguing roses to join the depths. Not even a perfect candidate, if you can believe. A paying vessel who walked willingly through our front doors in the light of day. And yet, when we did the extractions, what we found was quite unexpected. Quite an extraordinary story. Quite a rose we found hidden inside that vessel. Of the intergenerational variety, no less. Repressed as we like it best. And chock full of our very favorites. Why we have always insisted on casting the widest of nets. But unfortunately, this vessel expired prior to the last harvest, wandered away from us as they sometimes are wont to do, fell upon some rocks, rendering its delectable rose quite uncatchable, quite lost to the depths, ever elusive to our nets and hands. As you well know, a rose can only be caught by its own vessel. But how lucky, how formidable for us that this prize vessel had a daughter vessel, and this daughter vessel came to visit our little maison most recently, found its own way here, and it had a most delectable rose too, did it not? A rose that our most esteemed guest planted with his own hands. When we first glimpsed his signature, his mark upon its brow, you can imagine to our great excitement. Hence our invitation to have us join us tonight. It grew into quite a flower, which we did manage to pluck. A perfect candidate, obviously, given its lineage. Repressed and full of our favorites too, positively brimming with them, just like its mother, perhaps more than its mother. It has now joined the depths, and it is our belief that this daughter vessel should be able to catch both the mother and daughter roses for us this evening." So that is their very special main course. Quite cleanly laid out some of what's going on. So the roses, it's kind of already quite clear. I think it's very interesting that I hadn't fully clocked this when I was reading it, but the lady in red is just fully calling all of the vessels its. They're very specifically talking about Mirabelle, but they're only referring to them as an it. They are the vessel for the rose that they want to eat. And the rose is, it's their soul. It's very clearly, it's a soul of some sort. I'm a little bit confused on some of the details. I do think that the book at one point stops to make it very clear, where when Mirabelle is chosen, the lady in red is like, to catch both your roses with. And she's like, the main character is like, my roses? And Lady in Red goes, or if you like, your soul, however you like. And I felt like we did not need that to be laid out. It was really quite clear that what is going on here is the jellyfish are their souls, or are their souls are transferred to them. It seems like when the main character first put her hand in the water and that weird child gave her a small white jellyfish, I think those are probably like unimprinted basic jellyfish. And then through the treatments, her trauma, and specifically it seems to be trauma focused, is extracted and like fed to the jellyfish, which then, as her memories and self leaves, all of that becomes compounded into the jellyfish, which grows bigger and bigger the more issues are present, it seems. And then they eat it when the vessel is empty and all of the roses of the soul are in this jellyfish. There is one point of kind of uncertainty for me, which is that it's quite clear that Tom Cruise is said to have planted the rose in Mira. And that is, it seems I think everybody has a soul, I think. But also, I'm not actually sure if this is strictly a situation where everybody has a jellyfish soul, like a soul that is able to turn into a jellyfish. Or if there are specifically beings like Tom Cruise that have to plant a seed in you first. And that is a seed that then they are able to harvest and move into the jellyfish. I'm not really sure. The way that they keep talking about how Mirabelle was specifically planted makes it sound like that's the case. But then when they're talking about the mother, they say that she wasn't like a person that they chose specifically. She was just a random vessel who walked in. But when they went looking, they found that there was quite a rose already inside of her. So it might be that anybody can just sort of have a rose soul. We all have souls that are roses to these guys. But they specifically also seek people out to plant a seed that will, like, that they are able to influence to blossom more. Like the way that Tom Cruise manipulates the main character when she's very young to do certain actions that have a really negative effect on her. And certainly there's that idea that, is he really manipulating so much as kind of influencing so much as a reflection of some of her own wants? But I would say that he's definitely, you know, sending her in that direction, presumably because causing horrible things to happen will give her bad trauma, and he's hoping to eat that trauma later. I think that's what we have. At the same time, there isn't really a clear effort by these guys to guide the people that they planted back. I don't really fully understand how that works, and that'll come back when I talk about the critique of, I like that we're defining a lot of this stuff and giving clear answers, but also in some ways having those clear answers is, I think, detrimental to some of the broader storytelling. Anyway, the main character is meant to go and harvest her jellyfish and her mother's. So she goes to the edge of the water and puts the petals in, and first the very large jellyfish comes to the surface that was following her around, and then a smaller one comes up. And it's not actually certain which one of these is hers, but it seems like the big one she decides is like the mother and the small one is the daughter. She hasn't really put together, because she can't remember, that this is actually her soul and her mother's soul. She has no knowledge of that, but she does think, oh, the mother jellyfish and the daughter jellyfish, that's kind of cute. And as she tries to go and get them in the net, they dodge her. And then at one point, the mother jellyfish, like, holds the daughter jellyfish close and absorbs it into her. And this really pisses off the veiled ones. And she kind of is starting to be struck by it. There isn't really a clear moment of her breaking out of anything, but it seems heavily connected to staring at this mother jellyfish and getting weird feelings around it. So much that then when they're like, hey, you need to go and scoop that jellyfish up now, she starts to go, no, actually, I'd rather not. And they try to tell her, like, you're on the cusp right now to becoming your most magnificent self, so do it. And she's like, I'd rather not be on the cusp of anything. I want to go home, actually. I'd be happy to pay and go. And they're like, well, you can go, just, you know, work with us a bit. And as she's kind of refusing, she finds herself walking backwards towards the jellyfish tank with this feeling that the jellyfish wants her to go in. So she allows herself to fall backwards. Immediately, all of the jellyfish in the tank swarm over her. They are able to let her breathe somehow. They're acting through breathing, and they carry her through this huge tank. At one point, she passes through, like, the ballroom level, and people see her and are, like, freaking out and, like, throwing glasses. Because, again, they're seeing, like, a woman covered head to toe in these jellyfish. The only part that's sticking out is her eyes. And she sinks all the way to the bottom towards the treatment room, where there's a grate on the wall. She can not hear voices, but she gets the sense that there are voices of the jellyfish that are communicating to her that this is the way to the ocean. And the jellyfish, using her hands, are able to open this grate and thus get washed out to sea. And that is like an end of a chapter, and she wakes up and she's like sunk through all of this ocean. All of the jellyfish begin to leave except for one. As they go, in the ocean, I see faces in the red creatures that surround me. Human faces, mostly children faces. And she hears or thinks these like sentiments of like, thank you and you saved us, as they all leave until one is left. And that one is the mother jellyfish, who is still somehow helping her breathe. Then she washes up on the shore, and it's starting to be dawn. And the mother jellyfish is like resting atop her and laying there, and she begins to sense more and more that, again, this is not just like the mother jellyfish, but her mother. She starts to remember that this is her mother, and the mother jellyfish, for a moment, transforms into her mother. I think this is non-literal. I think that this is more of like a thing or a sense the jellyfish is conveying that she is visually seeing than literal. But it takes the form of her mother, it kisses her on the forehead, and then dissipates into sea foam. When it does kiss her, she gets this swell of memories. It's this really nice rambling, I'm going to read it, first-person perspective from the mother that is also bringing up a number of scenes and things that we'd already seen in the book, but from the mother's point of view. And, okay, and then a light fills me, a warmth, a remembering that branches, of you and me, mother, of you and me, sunshine, of us, standing in an orchard, a sea of trees and September light. You're handing me an apple you picked yourself. For you, mother, you say. You say it matches my Chanel lipstick, my best red. And your face is so full of sunshine. No shadows yet. You reach out to hand it to me, and I'm afraid of how beautiful you are, how much I love you, how I won't be able to protect you from this place, from me, my places that I go. One is locked away in the closet, cracked and turned to the wall, but one day you'll find it. You'll stand in front of its shining face, not knowing why I turned it away, that I'm only protecting you from myself, the things I can't change, the things I wish I could. I'll try to stop it in my clumsy ways that are out of love that won't work, but my places will soon be your places, and everything will shatter like glass. Terribly, both broken for years. I'm in a blackness that knows no end, even among the palm trees and the light that melts me like a witch. My smile is a ghost. My heart is in a beige guest room on the other side of the continent, on an island by a slushy river covered in bandages. Years later, I'm turning circles in arrivals at the San Diego airport. September sun streaming into the windows. The board says your flight's landed, and I have no idea. No idea how I'm going to do this, if I even should. Should I save you from me? Keep you miles away in that awful woman's moldering apartment? But I hate to think of you in that beige prison. Don't know what's better in the end, me or the beige prison. Also, I miss you. Now I see you at the top of the escalator making your slow way down. Some predator is talking to you. They'll do that for the rest of your young life. You're looking at me. When I see your face, I'm so happy, and then I feel such pain. How much you've grown. How many years. I'm back in the orchard, afraid all over again. How beautiful you are. How much I love you. That I can't protect you from my terrible places, that I still can't go. Can't help but go because nobody protected me. No one saved me. No one ever held out their hand and walked me away. But I'm trying to save you, sunshine. I'm trying in my broken way. I'm holding out my arms. I'm taking the apple you're handing me. I'm looking into your eyes and saying it's the most perfect thing, even though you're not hearing me. You're already skipping away. Still I call after, I love you. And, so yeah, that's like the kind of last burst of memories and feelings she gets of her mother from this soul jellyfish. It's, I think that I hear it in my voice that even reading that, I'm like, that really is emotionally affecting to me. Even though I have this thing where I want like a reckoning to come between her and her mother's relationship, and this ultimately is it. But at the same time, I kind of do feel like for what it is kind of a quick turnaround. She doesn't really remember her mother, and then she gets this memory thing, and then the rest of the book here is like a little bit of some resolution. And in that resolution, you do get more reflections of her and her mother. She's thinking about all that happened and thinking about it and how she can't really describe what it was, how she would explain it. But if she had to explain it, she would describe it as a great grief, which is also this present thing. I haven't really spoken about that, but there's no sense of grief from her in the beginning of the book, and much more by the end here. And you get that feeling of like, this was a very complicated relationship with her mother, and she's kind of coming to terms with a lot of different things about her mother. This was just the weirdest vector that she had to go through to experience that. And so, yeah, she washes up on the beach, and Sylvia finds her. Sylvia takes her in, lets her stay in her guest room. She's really actually very nice. This is another thing where now with clearer eyes, the main character is able to look at all of the people that she met and was around for the beginning of the book and realize that she was looking at them just a bit wrong. You know, not fully off, but unfairly. She was thinking and seeing through, through clouded glass, like through inaccurate things, envy and other feelings. And she realizes, like, Sylvia, who she's thought of as, like, this very annoying, horrible woman, is actually, like, really not that bad. Sylvia's actually quite nice, and she finds that she likes her and her company, and Sylvia's being very kind to her and not pressing her on what happened, but is concerned and, like, letting her stay in her guest house while she recovers from what was clearly to everybody a, like, mental breakdown of an extreme degree, where her behavior at, like, the shop was not okay, but also everybody who saw it for what it kind of was, even though there was some literal brain emptying vampire soul things going on, which is her being struck by a grief and doing just things going very wrong. She was having some sort of mental breakdown, and now she needs a lot of time to recover. And she is spending time to she finally calls the funeral home about her mother's ashes, which is something that, like, came up very early on, that they were calling her and she wasn't acting on it, and now she's finally getting back to that. She finally calls her boss and says that she's quitting. She calls the guy who is pet sitting her cat and checks in on that. Like, she's finally sitting and trying to deal with a lot of these smaller little details and getting things together more. She runs into Tad again, and with Tad she's able to have a nice conversation where, again, he's just expressing genuine feelings and kindness and things like that, because he recognizes that she was going through something really horrible, and that's why she was acting erratically, but she also realizes that the ways that she was thinking about and viewing him, which so often was only that he was her mom's boyfriend when that was never actually confirmed, that she was using that idea of her mom's boyfriend to view him in very specific ways, especially connected to her mom having a series of boyfriends that she never liked, who were often very condescending or weird towards her. And Tad has actually always been quite a nice guy, and we don't even know that that was her boyfriend. But maybe it was, and maybe that's okay. She thinks about Lake, but she can't remember what Lake's name. She never learned Lake's name. Lake was the woman that she was going to treatments and would run into the same woman in the waiting room each time, who was mixed race like her. That was definitely Lake, but she can't find who Lake was. She tries looking around and doesn't know what she looked like, doesn't know her name, and she thinks about things that, again, are probably she was just like me, with her own dark mirror, her own story of envy and longing that made her the perfect candidate and then the perfect feed. What was your mirror like, Lake? What did you see when you looked into its shining face? Did you see how beautiful you were? Did you ever see your face as it truly was? Or was it another face you saw there, the name and shape of some childish dream? Did he dance with you in the bedroom dark, whisper poison into your young ear, his breath on your neck like a cold, cold breeze? Did yours look like a famous movie star? Someone that as a child you might have recognized, already learned to love, trust, find beautiful? Face like the sun, eyes like the sea, and yet something about the cold sticking of his touch, the endless deep in his eyes, the poison words on his red lips told you he was also something else, something awful you couldn't name. Where did it come from? Your soul or the glass or something else between? What did it make you destroy? I was only ever a mirror for your own darkness, seedling, Seth said, his eyes going from blue-green to red to blue-green. I wish I could ask her. So again, I think that this is the tricky thing about some of these where I'm like, there's definitely, I guess, a species of question mark mirror entities. I don't know if all the veiled ones are mirror entities. I don't know. His name's just Seth. Like, I wasn't sure that there would be, I couldn't understand how an Egyptian god connection could be there, but I was so confused by him just being Seth, such an ordinary name, that I was reaching for something and I don't have any answers. Like, his name's just Seth, okay? So, was he human once? He can walk through mirrors now. There must be others out there, and those who are selected all encountered such things. But also, I wonder if, it makes me wonder if her mother was a similar, like, I kind of assume, but it's not really clear, if her mother was a similar target by Seth or others of his kind, because she already had that mirror in the closet. And she always was, I did some math because I was thinking about it, and I was like, wait, her mother was 23 when she had her, so she was quite young. And there's also something there in their relationship and the strain between it, and how her mother wanted like these big dreams of like Hollywood and such, but found herself living very much far away from all of that, still wanting to pursue all of this glamour. She loved old Hollywood movies. She worked at like a clothing store, but she wanted to do like the dazzling, beautiful fashion, like the shop that she eventually did wind up opening. And I have to wonder if there was already like Tom Cruise or, somebody else who was visiting her when she was younger. When we have that vision of all of the jellyfish leaving, she says that the most of the faces she sees are children's faces, meaning that most of the jellyfish, probably the majority, are souls that were planted when they were children. Like, she was 10. It seems like the mirror entities perhaps seek out young people that they can see a, seed of envy and longing and unhappiness. They then are able to manipulate and grow and cause them to bloom into the kind of roses that they want to eat, where anybody can just have that. It sounds like her mother wasn't formally planted by somebody, but she already had that mirror. And there's also this odd thing when in one of Mirabelle's flashbacks, there's this time where it's after Tom Cruise kisses her forehead. So Tom Cruise kisses her forehead. Her mother walks in right away and is really upset that she's in the closet again doing this and says, I'm gonna get a lock for this room. But she doesn't get the lock yet. And Mirabelle sneaks back in after this to try and contact Tom Cruise. And he doesn't show up. She thinks is it because I got really shy and I didn't kiss you properly? I'm really sorry, I'll make it up to you. But he doesn't show. And she tries, I think more than once, but nothing. But then her mother comes home with a new boyfriend, Bryce, but she sees Tom Cruise. She sees that it's the same guy and is like, what are you doing here? And he's like, huh? And her mother's like, this is Bryce, honey. But she can only see Tom Cruise. But then a little glimmer once or twice, and then for most of it, she sees a very regular looking man, just Bryce. Then after this encounter, Tom Cruise shows up again. And Tom Cruise says she's like, oh, you're here. Of course I'm here. I thought you left me. I thought you were gone forever. Why didn't you meet me in the mirror today? I waited and waited for you, but you didn't come. Tom Cruise says, it wasn't safe. I knew your mother was plotting something, so I found another way. Through her new boyfriend. He's a fool. Very easy to infiltrate. Was it you drinking and laughing with Mother all night? Did you have... Saying the word sex to Tom is impossible. Tom smiles, shaking his head. I did it just to get to you. You did? Definitely. I'm gonna call some severe bullshit on Tom Cruise here, because there's nothing that suggests her mother did anything that would stop this mirror, that's even possible. So my question becomes, was he already, or because of Mirabelle, targeting the mother? Is it possible that Bryce is the boyfriend that is the one that is her boyfriend when the mother gets poisoned, and is the one that doesn't let Mirabel come to the ER. And when she goes to California, it's with Bryce. He's the movie producer. So is Tom Cruise acting through Bryce / is Bryce? Is Tom Cruise, you know, manipulating situations for both of them to cause all of this, like, envy, resentment, all of their problems? I think maybe, because he didn't need to do that at all. Like, it's definitely hurting Mirabel, but also potentially it's fostering something in the mother as well. So, yeah. Right, what else is there left? I think that, yeah, the book kind of has this weird thing with the very end, where it kind of reaches a very nice conclusion point. She's just in the process of picking up the pieces, healing, looking at things that she came here and had one view of and realizing that she has different views on it now. There's sort of a nice scene right towards the end of Sylvia kind of saying, like, you're looking better these days. And Mirabel hasn't looked in a mirror since she arrived. She doesn't really know what she's going to see. So she asks Sylvia how. And Sylvia just kind of says, Sylvia doesn't look at me like she's afraid for me. She's smiling, like there is someone there she recognizes in my eyes. A friend. Like you, she says. So that's a very sweet and good ending. But then there's this really weird thing where there's one more chapter afterwards. And part of that is her returning to her mother's apartment. So that seems like important. This is where she sees Tad. But I feel like that could have happened before this point. Especially because how the book actually ends is with a scene wrapping up Hud Hudson. And it just didn't feel important. I didn't need to know where Hud Hudson was. She thinks about Hud Hudson briefly beforehand, about how the last time she saw him, he was being, like, led away by that weird child. And thinking, like, oh, I wonder what happened to him. And I was very content to leave it there. Like, what happened with the house afterwards is that it apparently flooded, but no bodies were found inside. So everybody left, but the house is completely destroyed. So Hud Hudson is gone, except she sees him on the beach, and he's, like, slow dancing with a mannequin, one of her mannequin sisters, and she comes to try and, like, save him in the way that he tried to save her. And he says, well, she's trying to interlude and be like, can I have this next dance, to try and bring him away from the ocean. He says, I'm saving you, you know. And she says, I know. And then we have a little bit of just a bit more about, like, this is how the book ends. It's nearly the end of its story, the fairy tale of the setting sun, time for the moon's full rising. We're still deep in the dark, shining water, but I'm dancing us slowly, surely to the shore. And I think that that's a way less impactful ending than just going with something more reflecting her journey. I like, her saving Hud Hudson is a circle moment because he kept trying to do that. He couldn't do it. She's now able to fulfill that role for him. Hud Hudson is also very specifically described to be like an old Hollywood actor from like the 40s is sort of his appearance. So he's sort of playing the role of his appearance of like a mysterious detective who's here to save the woman. So it's a, you know, turnabout that now she's the one who's coming to help him. And he wasn't able to do it. He was, you know, too weak by his own issues to really follow through. But again, I don't really think it was that necessary. I don't care about Hud Hudson. He was always a very weird character. He just never really felt fully developed or drawn. And I think that's a weaker ending. Okay, so that's the book. I definitely like this book, and it's really hard not to compare it to the last book I read and compare it to Natural Beauty, and especially think that this book is doing a bunch of stuff that Natural Beauty was also doing, but doing it far better. I don't like the writing in this book in a lot of ways, even in the sections that I really like where we're having her dazed viewpoint. The word choice is very repetitive. There's a lot of sentences that are just repeats. It's not very varied in a lot of ways and missing certain things, but at the same time, it at least is carrying the emotion and feeling of the first person narrator. And most of the book actually winds up being in that weird state of mind. So the first part, where I really don't like the prose, I can kind of ignore that because I like how it's being done in the second part so much more. And again, it's matching the emotions, feeling, and state of mind of the main character. Natural beauty, the biggest issue I continue to have, I think, is just like the main character is in first person, but does not have thoughts or feelings in first person. They're mostly just told to us, but they're never really affecting her. And this does. And it's unfair to, like, I mean, it's not really unfair because they're books that are covering a lot of the same themes. But they are quite different. This book is surreal and weird. It is going for a smaller scale in some ways. And that's why I think the Vampire Council aspect is... I like that there is this confirmed lore. I like that we get a good amount of information about what's going on, but not the full story. But I think that it also kind of transforms it into like a creature feature is kind of a strong word, but like there's this clear evil bad guy group, right? And they're these mysterious immortal soul-eating vampire things, and maybe some of them are mirror entities. And that kind of expands the scope far out of the main character and the location to become something else, where I kind of thought at first that it would wind up being more of a cult with just one mirror entity deity, Tom Cruise. And that would feel a lot more localized because it would only be about Tom Cruise, the mirror entity, and the main character, and like this whole cult spa situation that's around that. But once we open it up to like this broader conspiracy, I think that kind of does weaken it. So I'm really on a mixed bag of that, where I think that like in a narrative sense, it's a much weaker decision, but from like just a like an effective book, I like that it's a clear thing, that the plot comes together, that when you look at the full story in this book, there aren't actually that many loose ends. There's some uncertainties and there's some magical bits, like the bracelet seems to teleport around a little bit and can't be removed. But overall, for something that is so surreal and weird and has this dreamlike haze over so much of it, it actually is a very cohesive story that works well. And so I like this. At the other side of it, I think that some people will really not like it because it's in that surreal, weird style. But it just works a lot more for me because it is sticking to fewer themes. It's centered on that mother-daughter relationship. It really explores that. And it also explores a lot of other things. Like, I feel like this would be a book that would be interesting to reread because I do actually feel like the character has... It's funny to say change. She literally is forced to change. Of course there is. But there is such a difference between some of the information we get from her in the beginning through the flashbacks in the end, where we're coming to recognize that though we're in her head and she's telling us these things, as the reader, we can start to piece together things she isn't piecing together about how she feels about things and how things are. Like, with her mother, her mother was not a very good mother, but you also can see that she wasn't an evil witch. Like, that's sort of the thing. We're in a Snow White-esque story, and she's not an evil witch. She was never stealing the main character's beauty. That is something that Tom Cruise insisted upon, but that is, there's no truth or reality possible within this universe to suggest that was ever happening. That was always just these fears, this envy, this idea. And instead, we can understand that the mother was a very young mother. She lost her partner. I don't remember if they were married or not, but like, Mirabelle's father died when she was 5. And she has a kind of complicated relationship and feelings around that. But a lot of that also, she doesn't really give any recognition, as you really don't necessarily when you're a child, to her mother's feelings on that. And it's not like her mother was, a great mother secretly who was always making the right choices. Absolutely not. But you can also start to see that, like, in these flashbacks especially, she is thinking of her mother as a child would, and that's totally fair. but on reflection, she's not this monster. I mean, it's that kind of funny thing. I lost my father when I was a child, and I remember, like, when I was a older teenager or something, it was really coming to me, the idea that I had not really thought about because I was a small child, which is that really affected my mother. Like, it did affect my mother, but some of, like, that emotional impact about that, not just like losing a family member, but also the fact that your parents have a close relationship to each other, is difficult, especially when you're very young and you don't really have a close relationship with the missing person because it happened so long ago. You were so young, you don't even really remember them properly. So it's hard to conceive of them as a full person that your mother was fully in a relationship with. So there's a lot of these things like that adds this complexity, especially around her identity too. I have a bit of text I want to read. Like the main character being biracial is really important, and I think there's some things around the way that it talks about race that are very different from Natural Beauty, and I thought Natural Beauty, a lot of the strengths were around the like themes and ideas of like whitewashing and erasure that was going on, but I definitely think that this one here is able to, again, get into a lot of the feelings a lot more because it's more interested in the main character's feelings. And so part of this is this resentment she has towards her mother, who her mother is trying to, like, wears clothing that are robes from Egypt that her father gave her, some jewelry. She, at one point there's a story about her buying her daughter, like, the record for the Bengals Walk Like an Egyptian, and, like, kind of doing the dance. And that is really cringy and kind of, again, like, racist and, like, that sort of thing. But there's also the other sense that the mother is trying to do something fun and silly to approach her daughter, but is not knowing how to do that. She doesn't have any, like, connection to the Egyptian side of her family, but she seems like she wants to do things and acknowledge that her daughter is Egyptian and wants her to have something, but doesn't know how to do it. Like, there's a thing where her mother signs her up to go to a school that's a bit farther away because it's like a public school, and she specifically is kind of like, so that there'll be some people who are more diverse there, is very much what she says. And her teacher at one point is an Egyptian woman, and the mother seems to be like pointing to that as like it's great that you're going to this school, and look, your teacher is also Egyptian, which the daughter feels very like, she feels so off-put and out of place. She's already facing a lot of like bullying and racism herself. So these are things that just make her very uncomfortable, and she can't see that her mother is trying ever awkwardly to do these things for her because, yeah, she's like 10 and she can only really focus on the actual effects of these things. And here's some text on that, where Tom Cruise is telling her, like, I hate stealing. I nodded. I hated stealing too. I thought of Mother's many robes from Egypt, how sometimes she'd line her eyes like Elizabeth Taylor and Cleopatra, wear a blue beetle on her wrist, a scarab. She didn't steal any of it. Father bought it all for her. From Egypt, Mother would say of the jewels and robes. So why was it that when I watched the beetle wink against her light skin, I sometimes thought liar? I sometimes thought thief. Because she was Noel Noor with creditors only. I'm Mirabelle Noor, no matter what I wear, no matter where I go. Can't take it off like Mother's wrist beetle. Can't take it off like Father's eye. But was Mother really stealing? Wasn't she born like this and wasn't I born like that? And, you know, she's kind of trying to come to terms with what's a very complicated inheritance. Again, the things where she's wearing stuff that Mirabelle's father got her. It's not cultural appropriation, it's gifts from her dead husband, but also at the same time, it is highlighting to Mirabelle this feeling of absolutely not belonging, that her mother is able to take something that she is told is part of Mirabelle's identity and can just put it on and take it off, where Mirabelle has to live with that the whole time. And yeah, so I think the book does a really good job exploring these themes. Like, I've talked so much about it, I feel like, and I worry that I'm repeating myself too much, but I also, there's a lot of stuff I haven't really gone into depth about that I think is this really interesting and quite well written. As much as I kind of hate the prose in a lot of places, I think that like what the story is trying to do and what it's focusing on is tackled well. And I quite liked it. It made me officially lower my rating for Natural Beauty on Goodreads to 3 stars. But like that was kind of my impact about thinking about these ways that these books are both talking about similar themes and ideas, but the way that Natural Beauty felt like it was stretching itself too thin and unfocused. And this one, for all the things that I don't necessarily like about certain things, it knew what it was trying to do. It focused on that very effectively. And there's just a lot of like ambiguity still left over. This was enjoyable. And if anybody knows a 4th book that is kind of tackling this exact same theme, then you gotta let me know. I just want to find like evil goo that turns you into a evil cosmetics company wellness program, turns you into an exact copy of somebody else. Something like that. If I could keep the streak going, I think that would be really funny. But also, we'll see, I might need to change this up.